Ooh, baby, I love your way. I want to be with you night and day. All right, guys, we're gonna do this now. Ultimate Pogger Champion. All right, this is a debate from Modern Day Debate. Would have thought. And it's called "Does Joe Rogan?" Does Joe Rogan's podcast do more harm than good? Destiny versus Gavin Mcinnes. I'm actually very interested. I didn't think I'm just very interested. Destiny always tends to talk to some pretty high profile people. My general take here is, listen, man. In general, on social media, we tend to amplify the worst moments of anybody's life, right? So when somebody's doing something that we find agreeable, or we just don't care, it usually doesn't get pushed out. And then when we do see things that we find disagreeable, we tend to inflate them, and we explode and we go off on it. Me personally, Joe Rogan seems like the kind of guy that would sit down and have a nice conversation in pretty good faith, and I think that's the best way to do it, is to educate him on why he's wrong about particular things. I don't know, but this is about whether it does more harm than good. I think that, generally speaking, I think it's fine. Yeah, he does. There is some misinformation with COVID. I don't think it's that surprising. I know it sounds so weird, but it is very normal for a lot of people to be skeptical of it. I think skepticism fundamentally is a good thing. I'm fine with it. But, he's passed some shitty messages on. I remember one time he said that you shouldn't get the vaccine if you're young because you don't need it. And you may not, but, it's more about preventing the spread to people. And then he corrected it the next day. So he's definitely open to being wrong. He does seem to platform some suspicious characters from the popular hit video game Among Us. And again, I think that comes more to advocating for better people to come on and have conversations rather than trying to cancel him. But again, this debate doesn't seem to be focused on should we cancel him or not. It's more of does it do more harm than good? So let's watch.
Hey everybody, tonight we're discussing whether or not Rogan's podcast does more harm than good, and we are starting right now with Steven's opening. Steven, thanks so much for being with us. The floor is all yours.
Hey, James, thanks for having me. Just to be clear, I should have done the intro. The original email you sent was related especially to the coronavirus, the COVID-19, the pandemic coverage, and everything, yes?
Correct, absolutely.
I believe that over the past year, especially, if not in the history of all of media kind, I think that media has definitely made mistakes in regards to how it covers a lot of events that happen in the United States. I think that we've seen a few famous blunders in the mainstream media recently that give us some pause and maybe some concern for how some of these events are being covered. I think it's totally fair for people to be critical of mainstream media, and I think that alternative media can be really valuable for holding mainstream media accountable for some of their opinions. That being said, I think that alternative media needs to be critically evaluated in the same way that mainstream media is evaluated as well. I feel like when we look at mainstream media, people are very keen to analyze all the financial motives, all of the contraindications of things they're saying, all of the different reasons why the mainstream media might be dishonest or not forthcoming about something. But when it comes to alternative media, we seem to drop all of that criticism, all of that critical evaluation to the wayside, and we just believe what they're saying because they're giving us a story that the mainstream media is not giving us. When it comes to
That's fair. Good point.
Coronavirus or COVID-19 or the pandemic, I think that Joe Rogan has had a number of conversations on his podcast, but I think it's evident by looking at how his audience engages with his content that the overwhelming amount of attention that he's given has been to what I would characterize as conspiracy theorists on his program. And I think that most of the information that he disseminates is blatantly false, not bordering on malicious conspiracy theory. And I think that him presenting these things as two equivalent sides to a debate is dishonest. And if he was doing it as a mainstream media player, we would be far more critical of him than we are as him being an alternative media person.
That's actually a really interesting point that I never really considered. As how we have such low standards for people like Joe Rogan. Listen, because I happen to like him. I don't really watch his podcast. I happen to like him. I think he's a good guy. I think that's what resonates with people. Is hey, this is a good guy. He's an honest guy, and he's just expressing his frustrations with the world. And I think he has his frustrations are echoed by people of hey, listen, the coronavirus does seem to it kind of sucks. Some of the protocols seem they sometimes might be a little bit inflammatory. I think that you should, listen, I'm actually fine with mask mandates. Although there are people who are melting down. They refuse to wear a mask, even when that was the whole requirement. Yeah, can you wear a mask? People are like, no. I think I think you should get vaccinated. I'm vaccinated. I'm very happy that I got vaccinated. I had COVID. It was horrible. You should definitely get vaccinated. But I also think that that's somebody's personal health choice for the most part. I'm not against requiring vaccinations for kids to go to school and whatnot. I think that it should either be a vaccine or wearing a mask, but that's life's ideal. That's an idealist perspective. But I didn't actually, to get to the point, I didn't actually consider what he was saying. Like, yeah, there is actually very low standards set for Joe Rogan. He's just a dude with a podcast, and like that's how we interact with him. But he's a dude with a podcast that's saying things that can be potentially very difficult. And the people he chooses to platform lately do seem to be fucking conspiracy heavy. Like Robert Malone, the guy who keeps saying that he created the mRNA vaccine when he like was a contributor like 30 years ago, and that's great. But like, and he's passing it around as if he's like this kind of person, you know, he is the like end all be all de facto. Also, most scientists agree about the coronavirus being pretty shitty. And so it's always interesting when you find like the exception, the exception to the rule, the few people who have different, you know, differences in opinion. Doctors even are not against, the doctors aren't immune to having biases. And then we platform them as if like, oh, they're speaking the truth, but even though they may probably aren't. So anyway, the message to get out of this, guys, is get your vaccine, and don't sneeze on people. That's also another good message I think that we don't talk enough about.
So I would say that Joe Rogan has done more harm in regards to the pandemic for information that's being spread into society than he has good in terms of hosting alternative viewpoints.
Somebody said it's crazy. I recently watched podcasts, and I have no idea he was progressive. He's painted as a conservative. It's insane. Yeah, he's a more progressive-minded person. I think that Joe Rogan is getting the spotlight on him for saying dumb shit, which is a good thing. But a lot of the times, the way that the spotlight is it's always been very focused on like "fuck you, Joe Rogan," rather than like, "Oh, Joe, this is like not right." From most people. And I do think that a lot of times if one side is shitting on you in a way that you feel is unreasonable, which I feel is unreasonable, maybe that's my biggest problem, is like the people like the Hassans, they're not like, hey, this is a problem with Joe Rogan, but I understand that he's just like a typical he's just your typical alpha male dumb fuck guy, you know, like I can identify with that. I think it's like the passing off of like that he's a really poorly intentioned guy, and that people are like, no, he's not, and that's where I think people get locked up in. But I'm sure it's having like an impact on him and his frustrations and, like, you know, lack of a better term, his mental health. So
you got it. Thank you very much for that opening. And then Gavin, for you as well, thanks so much for being with us. If you'd like a few minutes for your opening, the floor is all yours.
I mean, I think I want to concede. That was great, and I agree with Destiny. I think we're done here.
All right. Well, that was a lot of fun. Cool.
It's like a fight when there's just a knockout, like a Tyson knockout at the beginning. The crowd all has to go home now. I think that the assignment here seems to be a little bit amorphous. The email I got said, has Joe Rogan's coronavirus reporting done more harm than good? And I mean, it's all basically the same argument, but we should start with the original assignment, and that was the original assignment.
That's really interesting that they're both seem to be kind of calling out the debate changed the name. It's like, hey, has this... Because in general, if you say more harm than good, I would be like, yeah, it seems like Joe Rogan provides entertainment, etc. But it's about the coronavirus. What's weird that the debate fucking moderator changed it in the middle of it is that seems bizarre. But okay.
And I think the problem with that assignment is it sort of splits into two. And the two things are, one, is there such a thing as misinformation, and should there be total free speech and should be able to say whatever you want, which I believe. And I think that's impossible to argue. So I
feel like most people don't agree with that point. I mean, like, I'm not a huge fan of people running in the streets, you know, screaming that like all, you know, of certain people should be murdered in the streets. You know what I mean? Like I feel like we're all fairly like, you know, speech limited to an extent. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not a big fan of that. That'd be fucking insane.
Suspect that Destiny would want to do is get away from that and say that we need to be, you know, the vaccine is very important and we're in a pandemic and you can't afford to even flirt with anti-vaxxers because people will die, and that trumps free speech. So the assignment was, should Joe Rogan not be doing these COVID things? And I think the only way to win a question like that is to say the vaccine is crucial, we're all going to die. So can we sort of narrow it down to that? Because obviously we all agree that alternative media should exist, right?
What the fuck is he talking about?
I think so.
Right. So even if you think that Joe, to go with the new evolution of this assignment, even if you think that Joe Rogan is doing more harm than good, we all agree that he should have the right to do so.
In terms of the right to do so, I think probably I don't want the government stepping in and making laws against who can say what. I think that's a little bit weird. Although I think we're all largely not interested in that conversation anymore because social media platforms have so much power that the legality doesn't matter anymore, right? If Facebook and Twitter all come together and say, hey, we're not going to host your speech, or Spotify in this case, it really doesn't matter if it's legally protected by the government. You're still pretty screwed in that case.
Yeah, but but outside of the law, we're talking about what should happen. And do you agree that Destiny, I'm talking to, obviously. Do you agree that we should have free speech for everyone? Joe Rogan should have the ultimate right to talk to flat earthers and people who think that the sun gives you all the nutrients you need and all that shit.
Listen, okay, so from a government perspective, like, yeah, he should be able to do what he wants. I don't care about that. But when it comes to a platforming perspective, like, yes, there are reasons that you should get deplatformed. I think that obviously, like, pushing around COVID misinformation is a really bad thing. I don't think that's a hot take. My thing more, though, is, like, is Joe Rogan the kind of person who can take reasonable, constructive criticism? And I do think that he is that person. And so, like, if I was... We're going to go from the perspective of, like, Spotify. Let's say I'm Spotify, and I'm like, okay, Joe Rogan's getting a lot of shit right now. What should we do? I would say, okay, Joe, we're going to force you to have a person on here that you may not want on, or we're going to drop you, kind of a thing. That makes more sense. Like, hey, I want you to talk to this person. They're very knowledgeable in this capacity. About like what you're saying and what you're doing, rather than to get locked into this constant like fucking situation of platforming fucking weirdos in a row because you're having shower thoughts and you're putting them on your show. Yeah, like if people, but that's the thing is I don't think Joe Rogan's the kind of person that's beyond a reason. Like he's not a fucking psychopath that's just like I like a super I don't think that he seems to be, he's very skeptical of COVID, which I think a lot of people are, but he's not like the guy who is trying to pass around misinformation, if that makes sense.
If you want to have the conversation, sure. But I guess I'm less interested in like, should you have the right to do something, and more interested in the conversation, like, what's your responsibility to society or the public at large? Like, how should you be platforming these conversations?
So let's recalibrate now. Let's restart. And the new assignment is: has Joe Rogan's show done more harm than good in the past 2 years, specifically related to COVID? And the fact that the idea whether he should or not have a platform is now extinguished.
Sure. Yeah, we don't. I mean, I imagine we'll probably come back to that, but yeah.
Okay, good. I think we're in such a nebulous time that how the fuck do you quantify if Joe Rogan's? We're really talking about two podcasts, right? We're talking about the Malone guy and the doctor, and we're saying have those interviews done more harm than good? That's specifically what we're arguing about right now.
Yeah, I think essentially for the coronavirus stuff.
And I don't see how you could argue that information is bad.
Sure. So
it's just like a weird thing. I thought he was going to go with like, yeah, it's two podcasts out of like a lot of things he's talked about. So do you really think that that's enough to pass judgment? I was like, okay, fair point. And then he's just like, hey, is information bad? Like, yes, there is bad information. I don't know if that's undeniable. If I gave you information that was like, oh, it's okay to fucking, I don't know, kill people that are Italian, it might be good. Well, it might be good information. I'm just kidding. That's bad information. That's bad information, right? Because that's just bad stuff. Like, oh, or hey, like all the Jews own the banks. You know what I mean? So now that's not good information. That's bad information. It's toxic and it's divisive and ignorant information. You know what I'm saying? Like there is bad information. I'm very confused.
This is a kind of an odd question. Did you ever see a long time ago when Jon Stewart went on Crossfire?
Oh,
basically, some people.
I love that interview. It was phenomenal. I love Jon Stewart. He makes my penis so hard, bro. That was a really good interview. He was like shredded people.
Argue that he got the show shut down. You familiar with this?
Yeah, it's a huge pet peeve of mine.
Okay. Well, I don't know where you stand on it, but
I stand on that. He did not shut Tucker down. Tucker had a new job.
Okay, sure. Maybe he
and
didn't shut it down.
They brought on a comedian to be a funny guy, and instead of being funny, he totally fucked them over and went on the attack.
Gotcha.
And like destroyed the whole segment. And used it as a propaganda piece based on...
Bro, that segment is phenomenal. I think I might pull it up. It's incredible because Jon Stewart on Crossfire, he absolutely like exposed Crossfire for being like really just pushing media divisiveness, and it was a fantastic speech. It was phenomenal. It was like a very respectable moment, and it's like here.
Crossfire is very different. We have just one guest. He's either the funniest smart guy on TV or the smartest funny man. We'll find out which in a minute. But he's certainly an Emmy Award winner, the host of Comedy Central's Daily Show, and the co-author of the new mega bestseller, America, the Book, A Citizen's Guide to Inaction, at your bookstores everywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Crossfire, Jon Stewart.
Thank you.
Thank you very
This is
much.
such a great interview.
It's very kind of you to say. Now what? Can I say something very quickly? Why do we have to fight? The two of you? Can't we just say something nice about John Kerry right now?
I like John. I care about John Kerry.
And something about President Bush.
He'll be unemployed soon.
I failed
See, I made the effort anyway.
No, actually, I knew Bush in Texas a little bit, and the truth is, he's actually a great guy. He's not a very good president. He's actually a very good person. I don't think you should have to hate to oppose somebody, but it makes it easier. Why do you argue? The two of you? I hate to see it.
We enjoy it.
Let me ask you a question.
Wait, let me ask you a question first.
All right.
Is John Kerry really the best? I mean, I think John Kerry's not
Is he
a
the
terrible
best?
guy.
Like,
I
thought Lincoln was good.
Is he the best the Democrats can do?
Is he the best the Democrats can
this
do?
year.
I'd always thought
On the whole field.
in a democracy, and again, I don't know, I've only lived in this country, that there's a process, what they call them primaries.
Right.
And they don't always go with the best, but they go with whoever won. So is he the best? According to the process.
Right, but of the 9 guys running, who do you think was best? Do you think he was the best? The most impressive?
The most impressive?
Yeah.
I thought Al Sharpton was very impressive. I enjoyed his way of speaking. I think oftentimes the person that knows they can't win is allowed to speak the most freely, and because otherwise shows with titles such as Crossfire, or Hardball, or I'm going to kick your ass, or we'll jump on it. In many ways, it's funny, and I made a special effort to come on the show today because I have privately, amongst my friends, and also in occasional newspapers and television shows, mentioned this show as being bad. And I felt that wasn't fair, and I should come here and tell you that it's not so much that it's bad as it's hurting America. So I wanted to come here today and say,
wait,
here's just what I wanted to tell you guys.
Yeah.
Stop. Stop hurting America.
Okay, now
and come work for us, because we, as the people.
How do you pay?
The people, not well.
Better than CNN, I'm sure.
But you can sleep at night. See, the thing is, we need your help. Right now you're helping the politicians and the corporations, and we're left out there to mow our lawns.
Just said we're too rough on them when they make mistakes.
No, you're not too rough on them. You're part of their strategies. You're partisan, what do you call it, hacks.
Wait, John, let me tell you something valuable that I think we do that I'd like to see you
Something
do.
valuable?
Yeah, no, it's nice
I would like to hear it.
and I'll tell you, when politicians come on,
Yeah.
it's nice to get them to try and answer the question. And in order to do that, we try to ask them pointed questions. I want to contrast our questions with some questions you asked John Kerry.
If you want to compare your show to a comedy show, you're more than welcome to.
Here's the point.
All right, so I'm not going to play the whole thing, but like it really does end up
Competition.
I think you're a good comedian. I think your lectures are boring. Let me ask you a question.
I would watch yourself, because there's no commentary I can provide, just watching it specifically. I would genuinely recommend you watched it yourself, but it's a really good call out, and it's like one of the first things that really got me into Jon Stewart, and I had seen it late. But he basically calls them out and talks about how Crossfire it's really just two people of opposing political views that are just operating in a way that continues to feel like the political machine. You have people who are more progressive leaning individuals, progressive leaning media individuals who they don't actually hold other progressive leaning people accountable. Same thing with conservative people. They're just there to be a mouthpiece rather than to actually hold people accountable and have the right and honest conversation. And it was just a great thing. It was just great.
Bow ties and negligence.
Sure. So ignoring our personal feelings about what happened, I think that Stewart made a good point that the concept of the show was really cool. The idea that you could have political debates from both sides and you could see like an opinion fleshed out in the middle based on the tension between these two positions. But I think Stewart's issue is that it felt more like theater. And when I look at Joe Rogan, I feel similarly. When Joe Rogan talks about some of these issues,
there's way more theater in this than on a Joe Rogan episode.
I mean, we can agree to disagree, or maybe you're very theatric, but okay. I think that when Joe Rogan has conversations with people, especially like the Robert Malone episode, I think the issue is that it could be really cool to bring on a variety of people and really hammer out both sides of this debate. Are there issues with the vaccine? Do we really need to mask children? Those are cool arguments to have, but it's not just people that are coming on and presenting different tidbits of information. It's people like Dr. Malone that come on and essentially engage in like conspiracy with a bunch of facts that aren't true or supported. And then Joe is very critical of one side.
Bunch of conspiracy with facts that are not true and are not supported.
Yeah, correct.
So Dr. Robert Malone was just spewing a bunch of fake facts that are not supported.
Correct.
I think he was spewing a bunch of facts. Some of them are controversial. Some of them are open to debate. But to call them conspiracy theories and lies is a stretch.
Well, So, I mean, we can get into individual things. So, for instance, when Dr. Robert Malone talks about how hospitals are coding patients to die in a certain way, that they've died from COVID-19 just so they can get kickbacks and money, and then later on goes to
that's a great example. I'm glad you brought that up.
Okay. So that would be an example of a lie. This isn't reported.
No, it's not a lie. It's not a lie. You see, there's some gray here. We're talking about incredibly complex stuff, which is bizarre that a stripper from Louisiana and I, a Canadian drunk, are having a debate about how hospitals fill out paperwork. But when these people fill out the paperwork, it is advantageous to everyone to make sure COVID is there. And by the way, this is not doctors like killing people so they can get money back. This is doctors making sure they include COVID so they don't get sued for malpractice when the guy dies and they find COVID in him and COVID wasn't listed on the death certificate and they go, what the fuck? Where's the COVID? We're suing you.
So my understanding is that and this could be a limited understanding, but for the most part, it's really just them putting down COVID because it's I forget what the word is called. It's a comorbidity. Is that what it is? Right? Like realistically speaking, having COVID exacerbates other issues that you have. Right? That's really what it boils down to. So like you might have cancer and be on you might be on like medication, et cetera, or in chemo. But obviously, the fact that you have COVID is a massive part that's fucking you up, right? That's more about what it is, I think. It's not like it's not that it's dishonest. It's a factor in your death. You know, that's bizarre that the framing is like, oh, see, they say everything's COVID. Well, not necessarily, but COVID has a fucking profound impact.
So there's all kinds of litigation and financial sort of a push to make sure COVID is on these cases. It's not a lie. It's not a conspiracy theory. These are general patterns in hospitals. For example, if you're a doctor and you're working at a hospital, there's a thing called leaking, where if you say, okay, you've got fucking eye dandruff, and if I send you to the Selsun Blue expert who's down the street, and that has nothing to do with the hospital, you're leaking. You're sending a patient out of our hospital to somewhere else. That's bad for business. Now, you're not going to get fired for that, but we encourage you not to leak. We encourage you to keep everything within the hospital. And if you do that over a long period of time, your career is going better. So these are sort of general ebbs and flows and movements. They're not lies or conspiracy theories. It is currently advantageous to include COVID when you're reporting about a death or an illness, because you might get sued if you don't, and the hospital generally prefers it. You don't get a fucking $10,000 check and a wink when you walk out the door.
I'm confused because this whole sued thing strikes me as odd because there's like a lot of like medical, I guess you call it malpractice, but a lot of situations where there's parts in the infrastructure that get fucked up and people die all the time. It's actually a huge problem. It's a huge number of people where it's like something small. So I don't, considering that's happening all the time, I don't think it would always lead to like a lawsuit if you didn't put down COVID. That's just a weird argument to me.
So this is the problem with the interpretation of Malone's stuff.
So what do you think Malone is trying to say when he presents those facts?
Malone is trying to say that we have totally ignored financial implications of this disease, both from the recording of it and the administering the treatment of it.
So what Malone is trying to get at is the idea that there are deaths being coded as COVID-19 deaths that shouldn't be. That's what he's trying to say. Do you agree?
Yes, he's saying in a perfect world, they would, if we didn't have these strange amorphous blobs floating around changing things, that yes, in a perfect world, it would just be you were in a motorcycle accident, you happen to have COVID, but it's not relevant here, it's not going on the list.
So but
that's the thing, is that it's not like motorcycle accidents. It's like, oh, you know, maybe you have asthma or you had a heart attack, and it's like, okay, COVID's a comorbidity. I believe I'm using that word the correct way. Like, yes, because it exacerbates the issue. Like, my uncle died of COVID, and like, I believe the official thing was he had like a heart attack, but he got it because he had COVID. Like, it puts a profound amount of stress on the body. People aren't. I don't think that the people are dying from motorcycle accidents, and they'll be like, oh, but it was probably because of COVID. I very highly doubt that is representative at all of anything. It's just logically impossible. And so this really comes down to the why are you saying things type of a thing, right? What a question that people need to start asking is, why are you saying this? Like, what like, you can promote different facts. Like, here, I'll give you for instance, from a biological perspective, you know, it doesn't make sense that gay people are gay, right? It's like, you can't reproduce. Why am I saying that? I could be saying that because I'm just genuinely curious about the potential biological imperative of gay people, or maybe I just hate gay people and I just want you to know that I find them unnatural. And so it's like, okay, it's nice to present like some facts, but like, if you have an insidious if you have like an ulterior motive or an insidious plot behind the fact that you're presenting, now you're doing so in like a negative way. And by the way, I wasn't suggesting that gay people shouldn't exist. I was just making a point there. So yeah, why you ask these questions is a big deal. Like, why are you bringing up this particular thing? It's not just about the particular thing existing or not.
The issue is that it seems like you have an understanding that hospitals have to code for deaths all the time. They need to. It could be a matter of billing insurance companies. It could be a matter of transferring to other hospitals. It could be a matter of having accurate patient records. There are reasons why hospitals code for deaths a certain way. The idea that you might get more money based on the type of treatment or procedures that a patient needs, this isn't anything new or unique with COVID-19. This isn't the first time that coding a death has been important for getting a financial kickback to the hospital. So to bring it up in regards to COVID-19, yeah. But when Robert Malone brings it up, when Robert Malone brings it up in regards to COVID-19, and when I've seen conservatives bring it up over and over and over again, the implication is that hospitals are lying about COVID-19 deaths, that a guy gets shot and killed. George Floyd, that was marked as a COVID-19 death. That
people are saying wasn't actually.
people are saying that these COVID-19 deaths are essentially being fabricated by the hospitals to earn money.
No, they're not saying that. They're not saying that.
Is absolutely
yeah, that makes sense. I get what they're saying. You know what's interesting? I remember talking to my wife about something like this, and they were talking about how, and she worked in like a particular, she did like interned at like a place. I can't be specific, but for her, she's a social worker, behavioral specialist, right? And they talked about how they needed to get treatment for a kid, and they thought that they had one thing, but it would have been difficult to like diagnose or bill, so they diagnosed them as something different, so that they could get them the treatment that they needed, because it was a very similar treatment plan. It was just very interesting.
They're casting a very wide net in order to cover their asses. And I don't think you can dispute the fact that of all of these horrific deaths, I think we're up to 900,000 now, something like 96% had tons of other problems. So you have someone with cancer who dies. They also had COVID. We're not sure how much COVID had to do with the drifting into the metastasization of the cancer. So we just put it on.
See, that's what I'm saying. The cancer fucks your body up. And a lot of people with cancer are on, like, my mom has a friend who has cancer, and she was massively high risk due to, like, she got COVID too, and she's in remission, but it fucked her up. And so, like, because when your body is weak from fighting anything, it's weaker to fighting all things. Like, people, I had diabetes. I got my COVID was worse than my wife's, who doesn't have diabetes, because it's a factor. So, like, yes, I got COVID, but also the diabetes was, like, fucking it up. So, of course, these two things conflict with each other and make COVID worse. I don't understand why this is a hot take.
There, we cast a wide net. You were trying to change that into, that's a cancer death, let's make it a COVID death. It's not that simple. This is why, you know what's funny, by the way?
There are other
with all
ways
this
to do
misinformation, you and I are doing exactly what everyone is accusing Joe Rogan of.
Not at all,
we are
right?
currently spreading misinformation just by having this discussion. You shouldn't have me on your show. I'm spreading the misinformation right now.
Okay, so the issue is that the things that Dr. Robert Malone is saying, I don't know why you're denying it. Maybe it's a joke for you, but I know that you've heard, and maybe you've said.
No, the joke specifically is
that
we're
people are
talking
trying to
about
say that the coronavirus.
Fucking Gavin is just instantly melting down. Like, what an embarrassing person. Holy shit.
And
we're
is
doing
being
it right
marked
now.
incorrectly on death certificates in order for hospitals to make more money. That's what the implication is. And now you're trying to obfuscate by saying, oh, well, a lot of these people had comorbidity. Yeah, that's how diseases work. Of course, people with comorbidities are more likely to die. When being obese is a comorbidity for a disease, and like 40% of Americans are obese, and the older you are, the more
you were
likely you are to be
talking
obese.
so fast.
Then
You
obviously,
sound like Ben Shapiro on Adderall. I have to like.
Bro, this guy's not even listening. Like, what the fuck? Bro, so this is an individual who isn't like Joe Rogan, right? So but him and Joe Rogan seem to have a similar frame of thought when it comes to COVID, but this guy is not willing to have a reasonable conversation or be open-minded. And this is a really good way to look at this. It's like, this is the wrong guy. You know, this is the bad faith guy. This is the guy who's not willing to have or engage in like a reasonable conversation. He's just there to say no, 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 no. I don't think Joe's that person. I think that he has biases that he has to get through, but he's definitely not fucking Gavin Mcinnes. This is the first like real conversation I've seen with Gavin outside of him pulling on like feminists that he could just make fun of, which I haven't seen a whole lot of. But I saw like that one clip, and he's just completely. Why do people watch him? He's not particularly intelligent. He's having a literal crybaby meltdown. Like, I know it's not that big of a meltdown, but he's already like, you're talking so fast. He's not even listening to what's happening. He's already decided to give up and go for like rhetorical wins because I don't think that he has anything outside of that anymore.
obviously,
I
there's
have
going
to
to be more
concentrate just to
people
make out
dying.
the words.
Okay,
Can I get closed captions for this?
I'll try to speak. Well, you don't even have me
Slow
on your
it
TV, so
down.
I'll slow it down a little bit. Okay.
Take less Adderall and more
people
bourbon.
that are people.
Fuck.
Okay, in terms of who's done more drugs on camera, I'm pretty sure it's you than me. Okay, in terms of people dying with comorbidities and being more likely to have a comorbidity when they die, that's not like surprising. And if anything, that is to be expected. People who are old in the United States are more likely to be fat, have diabetes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of these things are absolutely.
You have diabetes?
In the United States, believe it or not, probably.
No, you have diabetes. Did you say?
I said people in the United States who are older and obese.
Sorry, I get it's like these things whizzing by my head, and I have to sort of grab a word if I can see it whip by me like Blade Runner.
What's the point of the debate moderator? Why does he exist, by the way? This is just like a really childish engagement. I don't understand. Why is he sitting there? He's literally just, like, you're not doing anything. Why not be like, hey, can you just stop interrupting? I don't understand. What's the point? He's literally just, he's intentionally not listening just so that he could just be like, oh, you were talking so fast, I can't understand what you're saying. He's not really talking that fast. I have it on 25% increased speed, by the way, guys. If you're like, yeah, he is talking fast. He's not talking that fast. He's talking pretty slowly.
So if people are, there are other ways that we can look at like the number of deaths as well. We don't have to just say like, oh my God, all these gunshot victims had COVID-19 and that's where all the deaths are coming. We can just look at excess deaths over the year and we can say, oh, hey, the number of coronavirus deaths we're reporting seems to also be lining up a little bit under the total excess deaths we're reporting as well. It's not like we're just taking the words of the hospitals and be like, oh my God, 900,000 people died. Well, maybe they would have died anyway. That doesn't seem to be the case.
It does seem to be the case, actually. What are we at? Like 2?
Yeah, basically, I mean, you probably got what he said, but basically he's just saying that we can just look at the death trends. Like from the year before, we literally count how many people died every single day throughout the entire year, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if you compare them to last year, you have like additional deaths that happened over the what you would consider the average. Reasonable assumption that that's probably due to COVID, right? So yeah.
0.7 million Americans die a year, and it seems to be going up about 1.8%, which is what the population is going up. I think there's probably maybe a 14% increase over the past few years from the normal American deaths per year, but it's pretty clear when you look at the lack of flu deaths and other deaths that we are tunneling other deaths into here. And I don't think it's doctors going, I get it. I'll write COVID, so you give me a check. No, they don't want to get sued, and it's good for business to make sure COVID is in there. But
this is just
so. If anything, the lack of flu deaths, the reason is probably because people aren't moving around as much. We quarantined, but we didn't have like a solid vaccine to deal with COVID with because it's a very new thing. So if anything, you can make the reasonable assumption that the numbers being low, the number of people who passed, like the standard comparison, like let's say 100,000 people, I don't know, died like today of last year, and then 120,000 died this year on this day. I know that's probably like incorrect numbers, but you would say like, okay, well, since there was no flu because it's either we underreported it in an insidious nature, or maybe because people were quarantined. The flu didn't pass around as much, but since we didn't have a solid COVID protocol, there's more people who actually, they still got COVID, so that number's even lower or higher. You get what I'm saying? I don't know if I'm explaining myself correctly.
Just
please don't say
this is
that someone.
Absolutely
I'm not
true.
saying that there's a motorcycle accident.
Yeah, theoretically, deaths should go down due to quarantine, but since COVID was something that we couldn't get like a solid management on, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, deaths should have gone down overall. Like, it should have been less because we weren't going outside. But they were still more, which means that you would probably attribute even more potentially deaths to COVID because we should have been safer, because we're not going to get the flu if you're staying in your house the whole time, especially if we're like fucking clean freaks right now. You know, I hope you understand what I'm saying. I feel like I'm not just explaining myself well enough.
Accident that someone writes COVID on the report. But I am saying that every cancer death, every fat, every old that dies, they make sure COVID is listed. The deaths per year are about 15% more than they have been before.
Literally,
it's called a bad flu season.
And a bad flu season is 50,000 people dead, not 300,000 or 400,000 people dead. That's a bad flu season. You can look at the numbers.
No, slow down. When you say 50,000, you're talking about forms that say only Spanish flu, no comorbidity, only Spanish flu.
No, that's
when
not
they're doing
no.
this 900,000, it's all this other shit plus COVID. And also, those people weren't fat. If you're totally honest with yourself, you will concede that COVID is fat AIDS. We are living in an era of fat AIDS.
This is just
God is sending us a message, and the message is stop being so fat.
So that's just, man.
If you're an atheist, just change God with nature. Nature's sending us a message. You have an obesity problem.
Do you think that the flu is a special virus that targets healthy people, and COVID-19 is a disease that only affects people with high comorbidities?
No, I think that the flu.
So do you think that the flu can kill you?
Excuse me, you asked me a question. You asked me a question, Destiny.
Fundamentally different than when the coronavirus kills you?
You asked me a question, auctioneer. He's got the name of a black stripper from New Orleans, but he talks like an auctioneer. You asked me if the Spanish flu affects only healthy people. It affects everyone. But back then, we weren't fat fucking pigs. Now we're fat fucking pigs. So we die. It sucks. It's terrible. Fats and olds are dying at unprecedented rates. But what did Joe Rogan do? Because this whole
it's interesting that he says that it's terrible, but he doesn't care. He literally just said that he just passed around this idea that the coronavirus was created by God to kill fat and old people. And he's like, yeah, it sucks. It's like, no, it doesn't. You literally think that it's good. You think it's good. You think God is doing this. It must be like a good thing. What a bizarre dude. I don't understand. Why do people watch Gavin Mcinnes? He's a fucking idiot. Holy shit. He's oh my God.
Thing was supposed to be about Joe Rogan.
Yeah, moderator is absolutely garbage. He must be watching like a new episode of fucking My Hero Academia or something. What's the point of him existing? Like, I think it's a really cool idea to have like these debates and stuff. But like, what, you're not doing anything. Is this standard, or is this because he wants to let them talk because they're too high profile people? It's quite possible that they're just too high profile individuals. That's very possible. But it kind of just seems like. It just kind of seems like he's not really putting in any effort to do anything.
What did Joe Rogan do that got people killed? Pray tell.
So we were going over the misinformation that was spread on Joe Rogan's podcast. And one of those things, it appears like even you bought into it, is that hospitals incorrectly are marking COVID-19 on death certificates when they should.
I never said incorrectly.
And every
They're
single
casting
country.
too wide of a net.
Sir. Excuse me. You're interrupting. Excuse me. Okay. Every country.
You're saying I have a more nasally voice than you?
Every single country around the world, okay, is marking excess deaths, and all of them are seeing a marked increase in excess deaths that are more or less matching up with their COVID-19 deaths. It's not like we have the same number of people dying, but all of a sudden that guy with stage 4 metastasized cancer that, happened to have a cough on his last day on earth, we're calling it a COVID-19 death. That is just not true. That's not happening.
Yes, it is.
Okay, well, I mean, if you want to Google excess deaths worldwide, you can see like 55 different studies and sources from every country, every first world country around the world that will disagree.
But we're all doing the same thing because we're all petrified of this pandemic. We want to make sure that when you die in Italy of cancer and there was also COVID, you want to make sure COVID is included. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing.
It's just like he's not listening, right? Destiny's literally saying like, hey, listen, we're not just labeling things like cancer as COVID. We're seeing an increase in excess mortality rates on top of the labeling of COVID because it's a factor in their death because it just weakens you. And he's just like, yeah, no, bro, this isn't somebody who is ever willing to engage in a reasonable conversation.
COVID included does not mean COVID is cause of death. That's not what we're talking about.
They don't know. They don't know what COVID did to their immune system as they were fighting the cancer.
If only there was somebody that had years of undergrad, pre-med, medical training, residency, clinical experience that might be able to make that evaluation when they're filling out the piece of paper determining what killed a person. Maybe some hospitals have these people around. Do you think it's possible? Maybe. It might be rare, but maybe some hospitals have them. Maybe.
It's not that simple, my friend. That's why you and I are not doctors. You can't just fucking...
Dude, that argument shatters him. We're not doctors. We can't make A, B, C, D, X, Y, Z prescription. Yeah, but the doctors can. And the overwhelming amount of doctors are saying that like this thing exists. I don't understand. It just... he just doesn't even have an argument. What's the point?
Sit on your ass and pull it out of your ass. When someone dies of cancer, how much did COVID affect their immune system's response?
Probably a lot.
You think doctors are magic? They go, it might have really fucked their immune system. I don't know. But I'm going to put it on this form so I make sure that I've crossed all my T's and dotted all my I's.
Writing that somebody had COVID-19 is not the same thing as saying the cause of death was COVID-19. There is not, again, if you look at the excess deaths, was COVID-19. If you look at the excess deaths in the United States, it's not like, oh my God, we have 200,000 COVID deaths, but only 20 lung cancer deaths this year. Wow, we must have gotten really good at dealing with smokers in society. Maybe those vape pens aren't as bad as all the other old people say they are. That's not what's happening. We're still seeing deaths all across society in relatively expected numbers, but there is a big excess death that seems to pretty conveniently line up with, man, these are also the reported case fatality rates for the coronavirus.
How many Americans died this year died in general?
I don't know the numbers for
Throw me a ballpark. How many? Give me a ballpark.
I actually have no idea.
Okay, is it 100? Give me a ballpark. How many Americans die every year? We're at 331 million people. How many Americans die every year?
How many Americans die every year in the United States? If I had to guess, it's probably in the low millions.
Well, I already told you at the beginning of this debate, you dunce. It's 2.7, 2.8. The population is going up about 1.8% a year, and we have seen about a 14% increase. So this concept.
Wait, this doesn't make sense. Okay, so what he's trying to say is he threw out some like tidbit of information that was like generally irrelevant, which was like how many people died of COVID last year, or how many people died in general. So he's saying that what he's trying to say very ignorantly, and it's insane that he thinks that this is an argument, is what he's saying is like, hey, so however many million people died, we have a population increase of like 1% a year, but we have an increase of 14% of 14% deaths this year. So it must be because there's more people being born. Like, he's literally proving himself wrong. I'm just gonna die here. My team's a fucking bunch of idiots.
Of we're pushing motorcycle deaths and lung cancer deaths over to COVID is factually true.
Okay, so wait, you said there's 2 to 3 million deaths a year. What did you say?
About 2.7, 2.8, 2.9.
And if that increases 14%, did our population size increase 14% in a year? What is 14% of 2 million?
14% of 2 million. Now we're doing math quizzes here. 14% of 2 million would be all the black people in 2 million.
What?
So 14% of 2 million is over what? 200,000 deaths? 280,000 deaths? So is this like lining up with about where we think the coronavirus deaths might be? Like, or do you think that that's just like a totally like we have a? Do you think
the coronavirus deaths are 900,000
in 1 year?
No, since the beginning of the coronavirus epidemic,
which is like what, 3 years, 2 years, 2.5 years?
Yeah, just over 2 years. So I guess we're up to 250 a year. Is that where we're at?
So
all black people, what does he mean by that? He's just trying to be racist. Like, he's like, oh, he said 13%. So he's like, oh, black people. It's just like an edgy, funny joke that he decided to make because it's like a very appropriate in his mind that was like that first thing that came to his head is like, how can I just be racist in like an annoying, dumb way?
If the excess deaths for like 2 or 3 years has been about 200 to 300,000 a year over what we expected, why would you assume that's a natural growth and not just, wow, maybe an extra 600?
Oh, I'm not assuming it's a natural growth. No, let me be clear about this. The coronavirus pandemic is a very serious disease. It is the most contagious thing we've ever dealt with in the history of global medicine. I don't want to go back to the plague, but it's that levels of contagious. It is mind-numbingly contagious. Every doctor I talk to shits his pants about how contagious this is. It's amazing. However, it's not particularly damaging. It's not Ebola or this one. If it was Ebola or the swine flu, we'd all be dead. This would be the bubonic plague.
Sure.
So luckily, it only affects olds and fats and pre-existing conditions.
I gotcha.
Okay. I don't understand. Like, he's acknowledging that he's wrong. And then he goes, no, I'm not wrong. It's weird because he's like, hey, COVID generally doesn't really fuck with people that are like healthier. That seems to be somewhat the case. It's like, okay. And then it's like, so it doesn't matter if the unhealthy people die. That's his entire perspective. I don't understand how you could come to that conclusion. Like, yeah, COVID is still... He's acknowledging that COVID has a negative impact on fat people and then says there's absolutely no way that there could be a comorbidity there. They're just saying everything is COVID. It's like, no, you're acknowledging we have a very unhealthy population and you're acknowledging we have an unhealthy population and that COVID hurts unhealthy people. So, like, you agree. I don't understand this desperation to pretend to disagree. Like, what's the narrative? What's the motive here?
If you had to take a guess.
See, look at this. Okay? We started this debate about Joe Rogan.
And then also, something that people need to understand is that, like, if somebody that's fat gets, or if somebody that has, like, a high risk for COVID because of a pre-existing condition gets COVID and it grows in their body, I imagine now that COVID, or it's more lethal, they'll be able to pass it in, like, a more lethal way. Like, that's my understanding of the reasons why we get vaccinations. Vaccinations don't make it so that people can't get something necessarily, just fundamentally. It makes it so that it's difficult for it to, well, get it in one hand, but also for it to grow inside your body, for lack of a better term. And so if you have a bunch of really unhealthy people getting COVID, it would make it easier to spread to healthier people because the COVID has had a time to gestate inside the body.
Yes.
And now we're deciding if COVID is a serious disease or not.
Sure. So we're not. You're thinking that. I'm not thinking that. So let's say in 2019, if you had to guess, okay, how many people think died of heart disease? I'll give you a hint. It's the number one killer of people in the United States.
Are you Googling this as we talk? I don't have a computer.
Yeah, sure. I'm just asking you.
Did you Google that?
No, I have every fact memorized at the top of my head, actually. I talk about this.
Okay, so now you sarcastically avoid the fact that you're sitting there.
Are you accusing me of sarcasm? I would never Google in a debate, sir. That is one of the most dishonorable things I could ever think of. Well, on the internet, we today, bros, take that very seriously.
He was constantly moving the conversation away from the conversation every time he feels trapped. Gavin Mcinnes is a fucking, like, he's a little scumbag loser. What the fuck?
Like,
honorable is boring.
It's horrible. Yeah.
Like, we're in a bar. The debate should be in a bar. You're not allowed to pull out your phone.
Okay, so we're debating in a bar when you say, did you know that 2.4 million excess deaths were reported and 14% is the increase year over year? That's a bar stat to you? You would pull that out of a bar when you're talking to someone. Okay, well, this is my bar stat. I happen to
Where's my computer, fuckhead?
Don't you have a fucking cell phone?
Yeah, but I'm not looking at it.
Well, that's not my problem.
What? We're talking about who's looking up shit as they talk.
I didn't say I'm looking up shit, but you're complaining to me that you don't have access to your cell phone. I don't know if your mom took it from you or if you're in trouble or grounded or what. If you have it on, you pull it out.
Are you looking up shit as you talk?
I would never do that, sir.
I can't tell if you're being sarcastic or not.
I'm never sarcastic. I'm high functioning
like
autism. I can't be sarcastic. It's not in my nature to be sarcastic.
That also sounds
James,
sarcastic.
tell him, James, I can't be sarcastic.
His fucking mic isn't even on. Bro, we're 25 minutes into this debate, and this guy's mic's not even on. What the fuck? Did I mute it? Did I mute it? No. What's happening right now?
Oh, yeah, we were just about to move on to that, but I was just curious how many people died every year of heart disease. I just wanted to know that. That's what I talk about when I go to the bar.
I'm going to guess. I'm going to guess how many people die of heart disease.
Yeah, about.
I'm going to say 300,000.
Okay, close. It's about, in 2019, I think, I'm just off the top of my head, I think it was 659,041 people.
Oh, that's not close.
Yeah, it was within like the order of magnitude, okay? In 2020, that number went up to like 700,000. So we didn't hide it in heart disease deaths, okay? Cancer deaths in 2019 were about 599,601, if my memory serves me correctly. That number went up to over 600,000.
Yes, but Destiny, Destiny, there's a Venn diagram where COVID subsumes those deaths too.
No, because you can only have one cause of death on a death certificate.
You're adding 700 plus 200. You're up to like 900,000. That's all of COVID ever. How many people died now?
In 2020, there were 350,000 new deaths due to COVID-19. None of these other categories saw a huge decrease in deaths. Most of them went up.
Haven't we heard?
Alzheimer's, diabetes,
so
all
it's
these things went up.
It's a myth that flu deaths had vanished and they all got pushed into COVID?
Influenza is marked as influenza and pneumonia. Now, there were a lot of pneumonia deaths that were marked. Now, maybe that was because of the coronavirus and they should have been counted as coronavirus. So maybe the coronavirus should be even higher. But the influenza and pneumonia deaths for 2020 were about 53,500, if memory serves me right.
Yeah. So we have to discuss, did flu deaths vanish or did they not vanish? Because the story that I've been told is that flu deaths are down to almost nothing and they all got pushed into COVID. Is that a lie?
My understanding is influenza things basically vanished, yes.
So that's odd, isn't it?
Not really. If we're taking unprecedented steps. Well, no, but we all took steps to be less infectious in society. Doesn't it make sense that an infectious disease would probably decrease?
Dude, why you want to win this debate?
It's just that makes perfect sense. Like, hey, listen, right? We were doing coronavirus protocols, okay? And the reason we had to do those is because we didn't have like a vaccine for COVID yet, and you know, even the vaccine now isn't as good as like a flu vaccine for flu, obviously. You know what I mean? So we took a bunch of protocols to reduce the spread of that. Then other things that are within the realm of COVID, like the flu, that have similar treatment methods, like you should, you know, where you would, what is it called? What's the word that I'm looking for? Why can't I remember this word? Quarantine, right? That treatment is being prescribed. That's also having a positive impact on people that aren't, like, they're not going to get the flu. It's not going to be spread as much. The people aren't out. They're not about. They're wearing masks. They're being safer. So, like, yes, it would make absolute sense for those to go down. Why wouldn't they go down? The people are being very safe, and we have vaccinations for the flu as well, and that are good, that are much better for the flu than COVID is for COVID, the vaccine. Why is that so suspicious to people? I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense to me. It really doesn't.
It's so bad you're letting old people die.
I'm asking a question. It's like you're saying like just because we told everybody to stay home,
I'm a real
drunk driving accidents decrease.
I'm a real death.
That's
and you're like, yeah, I got to win this, bitch. Sorry, fuck you.
So do you think that it's unfathomable that as we take historic steps to decrease our interaction with each other, that maybe influenza deaths might decrease?
And diseases were obliterated. We lost influenza.
How many people do you think died?
We didn't have herpes. Okay. Did herpes disappear?
Look, both hands. I'm holding both hands up here, so I'm not looking it up, okay? How many people do you think die of influenza every year? What do you think is the number?
Jesus Christ, what an scintillating debate this is. Hey, kids, tune in.
You started it with the number thing.
We guessed the number influenza. Hey, guess how many kids had polio in 1927?
So it's fun when you do it, when you have your memorized stuff, but it's not fun when we look at any
Well, mine were pretty more. They're much more serious. It's how many Americans die every year. That's a little more than how many old ladies couldn't breathe in 2020.
American old ladies.
Influenza,
Excuse me.
I'm going to give you a fucking.
It's like the number. You don't have to guess.
$50,000.
That's a really bad flu season. On average, I think it's like 10 to 15,000. Okay,
Oh,
we don't have
way
all these
too high.
people. Yeah, we don't have all these people that are dying.
Welcome back
year,
to
right?
Guessing the Numbers with Destiny and Gavin. We will be guessing the population of Papua New Guinea after the break. Please stay tuned. And also, we're going to guess what 377 times 17 is. It's probably a lot. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
This debate was supposed to be about Joe Rogan.
Bro, this is like insane. This guy is such a loser and he's so dishonest. He's just, he's rambling because he has nothing intelligent to say. This isn't even like, this isn't even a subtle tactic he's doing. It's so obvious he's a fucking moron. I don't understand.
Mm-hmm. And is he more bad than good? And my contention is, if I may sort of try to steer this beast, and if I'm wrong, then steer it back. But I'd like to steer this beast too. Joe Rogan should have the right to speak, and within the same sort of paradigm.
I love how every time he gets hit with a question he can't answer, it's like, oh, wait, we should bring this back on track. Okay.
Westerners don't like the mandates. They're pissed off. The mandates may be good. For example, brushing your teeth before and after, when you wake up, when you go to bed, is great for cavities. Wearing a helmet 24 hours a day is good. You will not get head injuries. It will definitely reduce the number of injuries in the country. But Americans, and I'm happy to see Canadians, don't like to see this shoved down their throat. So Joe Rogan can have an open platform and discuss whatever the fuck he wants with anyone. They can have any theory. Pedophilia and the Holocaust are the most controversial ones. That's another thing. But I should be able to discuss coronavirus with anyone, any of their theories. And I don't believe harm comes from that. Information is only good. All news is good news.
Even if
and
it's
then as
fake
far
news?
as the rebellion goes,
what if the news is just what if the news is just wrong? What if it's like fake?
Fantastic. Go bananas. I've had flat earthers on my show.
I'm not asking if you've had flat earthers on your show. We're asking if he does more harm than good. And if you
also, though, we have to acknowledge that Gavin's show is it's not taken seriously by anybody. Well, it's probably taken seriously by really dumb fucks. But like Joe Rogan's show is taken a little more seriously, a lot more seriously, because he's a more level-headed person. So there's more higher expectations and standards placed onto him. Not a hot take.
Platform a bunch of fake misinformation, and people believe it, and it's not real. Is that a good thing, or do you think
Destiny,
it's just like a meme? Or
can I just call you Steve? Destiny is the name I've ever come across.
I typically go by Steven, but I know how much.
Where did you come up with Destiny? Did you go to strip clubs in the South too much?
Absolutely. That you get a lot of mileage out of the Louisiana joke.
Are you our destiny? What does destiny mean?
It's your destiny to be incredibly frustrated by debating me when you can't see me on the screen. Your
it's
destiny
like
is to do
devotion
math,
or like
originally. I was going to be the Count Dracula guy from the Sesame Street because I love numbers and multiplication.
That's funny, at least.
So yeah,
be Count Chocula. That's hilarious.
But I started gaming. Okay,
it's a stripper who's been abused her whole life.
Gotcha.
Anyway,
so
Steve,
do you think that So we were talking about mandates or Joe Rogan? You did a whole segment on mandates. I don't know why.
Because I think that the danger with Joe Rogan is people won't get vaccinated. And the understanding is that people who don't get vaccinated are stupid and crazy, and they've been brainwashed by Joe Rogan's into thinking that the vaccine is bad. That's not true. The reason that the truckers are in Canada, the reason that there's a convoy coming up.
The truckers in Canada have to do with anything. Why are we talking about the truckers in Canada?
Because if Joe Rogan's show is dangerous, then the vaccine is good and it's being whitewashed by Joe Rogan to be bad or blackwashed, whatever you want to call it.
What?
And so all the trucker convoy in Canada is an example of people taking Joe Rogan-like propaganda and using it to destroy the country and destroy their lives.
Do you normally have like a Glenn Beck whiteboard on here where you're drawing like all the lines and shit? Is this like Charlie and it's always, I'm trying to follow the...
If Joe Rogan is
bad, then the vaccine is good. And truckers are in Ottawa protesting the mandates and the lockdown because how was the link back to Joe Rogan there?
Well, I'll say it slowly.
Okay, yeah.
Talk like a fucking chipmunk.
You're trying to like match my speed and I'm getting lost because I'm normally the only one.
Are you on Adderall? Do you do Adderall? Are you on Adderall right now?
Only for my most challenging debates. So I hyped up for this one. Okay.
Okay, good. I'm glad you chilled out. If Joe Rogan's COVID information is bad, then you would have rebellions where people say, I'm not taking the vaccine.
Okay.
One of such rebellions going on right now is happening in Canada. There's many more coming up.
Okay. I don't see how those connect.
Really?
Do you think the rebellion in Canada is caused by Joe Rogan or Joe Rogan telling people not to? Or what is the connection?
We're talking about the dangers of misinformation.
Yeah.
And in the context of this debate, the dangers of misinformation are people not taking the vaccine seriously, correct?
Okay, that's one of them, yeah.
Okay, that's one of them, yeah. Dude, don't do that, or I'm gonna fucking strangle you.
Bro, Gavin Mcinnes is like a really sensitive guy, like a very sensitive person. Like anything that he feels is a shot, he gets like really upset. I mean, he's red as fuck.
Bad. Okay. You don't even know what I look like. I could be huge. I could be like a 6'8" black guy.
No, I don't. I'm not into violence.
Massive muscle. Okay, well, because you threaten.
I fight people every day that are bigger and smaller than me. Gotcha. I'm not talking about beating
equal opportunity assault. I appreciate
people laughing at people they're talking to.
Okay,
is not acceptable here.
My bad. So we draw the line. It's after the Destiny stripper jokes, but before I laugh at you while you're talking to me. That's the
correct. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Naming yourself Destiny. That's like naming yourself Destiny. That's like naming yourself It, or naming yourself fucking someone who already has a name, like Johnny Knoxville. I'm Stevie Knoxville. It's clearly embarrassing. It's begging for ridicule. But laughing at someone when they're making a valid point assumes that their valid point is bullshit.
Okay.
So you can't be sarcastic, which you said you were incapable of.
Okay.
You can't be sarcastic and patronize someone
when I laugh at you. That's not sarcasm.
So what we're discussing here, shithead, is
my God.
Joe Rogan's information. Let's assume that he's having these people on his show that say the vaccine is bullshit, don't get it, right?
Right.
That's our worst case scenario here.
That's the worst case. If the vaccine is good and he's saying it's bad and they're not getting it.
Yes.
Okay.
So worst case with that is they have these big rallies where they go across the country saying, don't get the vaccine, mandates are wrong.
That could be one potential outcome. Yes.
All right. Now, my point is, these people who are protesting, everyone assumes they're anti-vaccine. They're not. They're anti-mandate. Even the guy that Rogan had on his show, he's vaccinated. He's not anti-vaccine. He's anti-mandate. And Americans and Canadians don't like being told what to do, even when it's the right thing. And I would argue.
You know what's really interesting? One thing that I found very interesting, I'm going to use Ben Shapiro as an example here. One thing that I found about is the way that Ben Shapiro talks about it's the way that people who are vaccinated talk about getting vaccinated sometimes, right? So Ben Shapiro is a really good example of this. Ben Shapiro, there's a difference between saying, hey, I think it should be your choice whether you do or don't get a vaccine, but I personally think it's a good idea to get vaccinated because it helps a lot. There's a difference between saying something like that or saying, yeah, I'm vaccinated, but I don't really think it matters and it's your choice. Like, that's more of the Ben Shapiro leaning perspective, where he's not like, he doesn't advocate for it, even though he's gotten it. He's like, yeah, it should be I think it should be your choice, but you should still generally advocate for it. It's a very interesting thing. Yeah.
This is a little outside the box. That the Civil War was not about slavery. It was the South saying, wait, what are you're telling me to do a thing? The thing could have been, we're changing traffic lights from green to red. And they would have fucking died to the tune of 650,000 because they cannot handle being told what to do. Americans, Canadians, true Westerners don't like being told what to do. No matter.
Wow, this is really interesting. Wait, so his take is that the South, nothing to do with slavery. The reason that we had the Civil War, nothing to do with slavery. It was because people didn't like that they didn't like being told what they could and couldn't do. It's really interesting because when I used to work at a job, there were protocols that you could and couldn't do. And most of them were things that you couldn't do were reasonable. Right? But if they ever said, hey, you can't go pee-pee if you have to go pee, I would have fucking lost it, right? Because there's something that you would consider unreasonable. The South considered it unreasonable to not own people. So they had a civil war. It's a big part of it. I know we want to rewrite history. Now, you could probably say like it's really rich people from the South that cared more. But my understanding is like 25% of people actually own slaves. I don't know if it's 100% correct. I believe it is, but I could be wrong. So, correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, they wanted to own people. It was a big part of it. The rewriting of history as like, no. It was just because they felt this, that. It's like, no, it's because they wanted to own people because it was a financial positive profit. It's kind of it, man. Yeah, let's see. How many people owned slaves in America? Or say, what percentage of people are? Here, we'll look that up inside while we do this.
No matter how valid it is.
Why do we have laws at all then?
Why do we have laws at all? Because the laws that we have, the murder laws, the free speech laws, they've been tried and tested and true, and we all came up with them together. It's when it's not a unison. It's when the tyrants come up with it on their own and they say, I've decided this would be best for you. We're doing this mandate. That's when people get pissed off, when we're not a democracy. This
but aren't we voting on the leaders
are democracies. So we have to work together to come up with these plans. When you unilaterally decide to fuck me over. I don't care if it's brushing my teeth 3 times a day. Fuck you.
Until like very recently in Canada, wasn't there?
Okay, so my understanding is evaluating the share of households that own slaves in seceding states is much more efficient ways. Okay, in 1860, nearly 20% of households in seceding states owned slaves. Right, so like that's the representative number. So the way people are like, there's a Facebook post apparently that goes around says like it's only like 1%. That wasn't like that wasn't like positively represented. That was at the time where people may not have been honest about it, et cetera, et cetera. But it's not as little as people like to think. It's a very high number. You should look into it yourself. I would urge you to look into it. It's a much higher number than fucking 1%. It's like 20-25%. It's crazy. I didn't know that either. I was watching a video. Maybe I'll do a review on it on the stream. I was watching a video about like the myths of slavery, and that was one of them. I was like, really? That's fucking incredible. It's crazy how many people, like how much like of a widespread problem it was. I mean, we already knew it was a problem, but I didn't know that like so many people benefited. I was like, oh, it's only like rich white people, etc. It's a lot of people like own slaves. It's incredible, incredibly bad. But it's incredible how like we were all misled into thinking that thing. It's crazy.
Generally popular support behind the mandates?
I don't know. I don't have Google on me. I don't know what you're talking about. Mandates. What were the mandates that were popular? Was it you have to be vaccinated to operate on a child?
No, well, the vaccinated across the border is a trucker thing, but I'm pretty sure they dropped that because that's enforced on the U.S. side. So no matter how much you protest, that's not changing in Canada. But I mean, all of the social distancing measures, the mask mandates, the whatever vaccine passports, I don't know if they're doing in Canada.
Social distancing measures are not mandates.
My understanding is that most
a mandate is
Canada
you have to get the vaccine or you're fired. That's a mandate.
Is that the only step that they took in Canada to ensure the safety of citizens?
No, you're changing it. You're pivoting as you keep accusing everyone else of doing.
Excuse me,
a mandate
sir.
is you have to get the vaccine or you're fired. That's what everyone who's sane objects to.
Okay, but that's not the only thing in Canada that they've done to counteract the coronavirus.
No one's saying that. That's not why there's a convoy. The convoy is about do this or you're fired. And that's
so the convoy is only about
too. Okay, so and there should be rage.
Okay, so the convoy is only about the vaccine mandates then?
Yeah. You think it's about 6 feet apart?
No, I think it's about like replacing the government in Canada because you guys are never getting rid of the vaccine mandates because they're enforced on the U.S. border side. I think that it's just everybody's just mad and they want to protest some shit.
Hold on. I don't mean this in a negative way. I'm not trying to criticize you.
Oh, thank God, because I thought you were about to say something.
I have no fucking clue what you mean by what you just said.
What's that? Say that again.
That was a funny comedy drop.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Don't do those, Ryan. They derail the conversation.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
That's Ryan. The only thing that he's adding is doing a fucking drop. Dude, I don't understand what the point of this moderator is. I don't get it.
Ryan, I feel like you just Jon Stewarted my fucking Crossfire show. Now my brain.
Yeah, why are you wearing a bow tie? Everything you do is a lie. You're trying to have a political discussion, and you're out here doing political theater. Oh, okay, Tucker lost his career.
Let me bring it back, okay? So my understanding was that initially the truckers wanted to protest the vaccine mandates at the border. That when you crossed into the Canada border, that you either have to prove that you'd taken a negative PCR test or PCR test and gotten it back negative or had to be vaccinated. And originally, the trucker people were going to protest that, but then they realized, oh shit, the United States enforces this same rule. That when you go to the United States, it's the same thing. So they're like, well, fuck, there's no reason to protest this because it seems like, well, it's not going to change on the US side. So why the fuck does it matter if truckers are going back and forth anyway? So now there's like a general debate over all of the measures that the Canadian states or provinces have taken to tell people what businesses are closed or the capacities in places or whatever shit they have for the pandemic. It's like a general
Most truckers
protest.
are national. Most truckers are not going back and forth over the border.
Okay, so then why were any of them opposing?
He's on his way to Ottawa. He's on his way to Washington. There's too much tariffs and bullshit and red tape for them to be zigzagging across the border. Canadian truckers deal with Canada generally. American truckers deal with America.
I don't even know if that's true. I
just made it up, but it sounds good.
Okay, well, you know what? I actually just Googled it, and that's not true. 64% of Canadian truckers, 64% of Canadian truckers actually go back and forth between the United States and Canada.
Okay, what are we arguing here? We're discussing whether we're talking about the bad sides of Joe Rogan's disinformation.
You brought up the bad side. Right? You're the one that wanted. I was still trying to build out the connection on your map to figure out how the fuck the truckers listened to Joe Rogan and decided to protest. I was still waiting for that. I didn't get that connection. I played too many video games, and I think the Adderall fucks with my short-term memory. Not that I took any, and I'm having trouble connecting it. But let's move on from this topic.
How long is this debate going to be? Because I want to have a long talk with you, Destiny, about your life.
I think James said we weren't going to go over 4 or 5 hours for this. How long did you say?
We've got about 10 minutes left until we go into the Q&A, folks. So if you have those questions, fire them into the old live chat.
Wow, it's the first time I've heard his fucking voice.
The open conversation shortly.
Okay, here's a question for Gavin. I'm curious, okay? Not even a Google question. Do you think that if we took a random sampling of U.S. citizens, we had a group of people that didn't listen to Joe Rogan, and a group of people that did listen to Joe Rogan, who do you think is more likely to be vaccinated?
I guess it's
obviously the people who listen to Joe Rogan are going to be less likely to be vaccinated, but I don't think that is due to Joe Rogan.
You don't think that he
The
might
right
play a little
tends
bit
to
of
be
a part
less
in that?
vaccinated than the left, and lefties don't enjoy Joe Rogan as much as righties do.
But don't you think that
If you polled country music fans and rap, no, not rap fans, actually, you wouldn't like where that one goes.
I'll
If
go
you were
anywhere
to,
you want to go. Go ahead.
if you were to poll country music fans and like indie rock fans, you would find
Why does he always have to like bring a racist element there? I don't understand. It's just so weird. I don't get it. I just don't get it. Like, why? What's the desperation to be like? Because that's the only thing I could assume is he just wanted to say something fucking ridiculous and racist. But
way more vaccinated people with indie rock fans. That doesn't mean that indie rock
I
makes
haven't
people get
heard.
vaccinated.
I didn't know that fucking Green Day or whatever, or that's not indie rock, put out a song saying featuring Dr. Robert Malone, Boulevard of broken myocarditis patients who got the COVID-19 vaccine. Right? Joe Rogan very specifically deals.
Mumford and Sons have supported Joe Rogan.
Okay, I must have missed that album where they talk
he's
about
part of the Joe Rogan scene, and he's supported by Skrillex.
Okay.
Eagles of Death Metal support.
I think the point that Destiny is trying to make without making it is like, okay, there's a difference between having ideas and using your platform to promote those ideas. So music, like artists and music might like Joe Rogan, but they're not writing songs about it in the same way. You know what I mean? But Joe Rogan, he's not doing songs, but you get the point, right?
The anti-vaccine scene. So
I think that I think it's pretty safe to say that Joe Rogan has a fan base that is probably less likely to be vaccinated than the general population. And Joe Rogan seems to say repeatedly, he's very critical of the vaccine. He'll kind of say,
is your lawyer helping you with these quotes?
Hold on. I don't have to answer that question in this format now, actually, is what I've been told.
So what Joe Rogan said, the worst thing I heard him say was he said, if someone was 29 and in good shape, and they said...
I like how it's basically... I like how Destiny's just not taking this debate seriously at all. He's just trolling at this point. And I think it's because he knows that there's no point. Like, this is just not... Gavin Mcinnes is dumb. And like, listen, I already knew he was like a scumbag, but like I've never really been introduced to him, so I like to wait for first impressions. And so this was like my first true impression, and like it was I think 5 minutes before he started melting down.
Should I get the vaccine? I'd tell them no.
Oh, okay.
Don't do it.
He's not giving general advice. It's just.
But I'm inclined to agree with him.
That's great.
I mean, I'm 51.
You're a victim of misinformation.
I don't think I need it.
You just came home from the trucker protest. Listening to Joe Rogan. You're a victim of the misinformation that I claim Joe Rogan is.
You just said you don't do sarcasm. You're clearly terrible at jokes.
Why do you think I'm being sarcastic?
Why? You're practicing? Are you trying to figure out sarcasm? You sound like one of those movies where the alien is trying to do humor and they're like, hello, why did the chicken cross the road? I'm trying sarcasm for the first time in my life.
Seems like it's making you pretty upset. So I feel like I'm landing close.
Yeah, I'm furious. The only thing that makes me upset is when you snicker and giggle. Those are deal breakers. But I don't mind if you try sarcasm. Go nuts.
Okay. What if I sarcastically laugh in the middle of another one of your monologues?
I'll fucking lose it and find you.
Okay. Are you vaccinated? Maybe you won't be able to get into the United States if you're driving in your truck to get here. Okay. Anyway, so Joe Rogan audience. Less likely to be vaccinated, probably.
That's irrelevant.
Joe Rogan himself.
Let's go back to the question. The question is
Joe Rogan.
Is Joe Rogan doing damage? Yes. And my point is, free speech never does damage.
Never does damage.
I don't know what to say about that. Free speech never does damage. I mean, we can't be. We listen. I think we have to balance finally on the line of free speech versus censor speech. And that's kind of what we're having a conversation here about. But to make the claim that free speech is never like, bro, what if I'm just running around saying that like I violently hate fucking Italian people? That's not really a good thing. That's a bad thing. I feel like we shouldn't be doing that. Like, we don't even have free speech in America. We have free speech as long as it doesn't infringe on other people. Right? Like, I can't say like, oh, I think that guy should die or I'm going to kill him. That might be free speech. But you can't do that. There's a good reason for it. It's so weird. You know, if you want to have a conversation about where the line should be, that's totally fun. But, you know, stop.
Damage.
Ever.
No, never. Fire in a crowded theater, none of it. Fucking Holocaust denial, pedophilia, are in the information, but they have, and the fact that we have this epoch of tattletale journalists who want to censor information is insane. It's like you're working as a fucking butcher and you're anti-meat, or you're working in the restaurant industry and you want to regulate fucking what people can have, whether they should be vegetarians or meat eaters. We want everyone to get maximum information.
Maybe
do it yourself.
Maybe
what do you want to do? You want the state to control Joe Rogan? You want someone else?
Talking about
who
the
is
state
controlling this?
Who are you talking
arbitrating?
Who are you talking?
I
don't know who he's talking to.
Who's the boss? Who's the genius who decides who can say what?
Right,
he's absolutely losing it.
We'll give a same amount of time for Destiny.
What about the doctors and the nurses who have had ICUs that have been running past capacity for fucking 18 months?
The doctors and the nurses getting fired
that are
for
getting
refusing to get vaccinated.
That are getting because they represent a harm to themselves and other people that are coming to the hospital. I think it's fair.
Why did they refuse to get vaccinated? Why did they refuse?
I don't know. It could be for a variety of reasons.
They're stupid. They're stupid nurses.
They might be. I don't know. Do you think every nurse is a genius? Are you out here to say all nurses are brave geniuses?
Dude,
that wasn't the position I thought you were going to say.
This is your Achilles heel in a nutshell.
You have no idea what my Achilles heel is.
You sit on your ass all day. You don't know anyone. You can't talk about these large swaths of people.
Who's talking about large swaths of people? I don't Google
You're talking about nurses
all the time.
That's a pretty large swath. What's that? I'm guessing it's 2 million people.
Where do you think my opinions come from?
Your ass, sitting down, Googling.
Only one of us here has
modern journalists.
Only one of us here has pulled things out of their ass on camera before, so I don't appreciate you accusing me of that. Number one. Okay. Number two, I have these opinions.
Socialize. You're a social person.
I socialize plenty. You have no idea how much I socialize. Okay.
I'm you socialize in the metaverse.
Didn't we just socialize like a month ago? I was down there talking to all sorts of people down in Texas.
You do. You put your headphones on when you're in your Uber.
I even did it. I even did it without a mask. I even did it without a mask.
He's from Pakistan. He's not. He hates Pakistanis.
Really?
Your Uber driver's a Sikh, and he hates Muslims because Muslims killed 1 million Sikhs.
Yeah,
you guys don't know this.
Gavin,
you're not social beings.
Gavin, I'm an adult male.
You don't know black people.
I drive
myself. You talk about immigrants. You don't know immigrants. You're not.
I know.
You're not out there. You're not discussing things with people.
Gavin,
even when you get your hair cut, when you're at the barber's, you're so fucking uncomfortable because you're with the working class
having
person.
a psychotic break
you
right
don't
now.
know like what he thinks.
He made fun of me for taking Adderall.
A weird robot.
When he needs antipsychotics.
Gentlemen, I hate to cut in, but just to
the ICUs are full, James. He can't get the help he needs. There's too many coronavirus patients in there. He's having a breakdown.
Now he's fucking going full on sarcasm after denying it was.
That was actually the first truthful thing I said. Okay.
Again, sarcasm. Great. Welcome aboard.
Is he sarcastically accusing me of being sarcastic?
No, I'm genuinely accusing you of trying out sarcasm.
Okay, well, I was genuinely concerned that you weren't able to get into a hospital because it was overflowing with coronavirus patients to get the antipsychotics you need to not have breakdowns when we're having conversations.
All right, Sam Hyde. Welcome to the fucking metaverse. Meta irony.
That's where I'm at right now.
This assignment was, should Joe Rogan be able to do... No,
I've repeated this like 6 times.
This assignment
I feel like I'm in trouble for not doing my homework.
Is Joe Rogan doing more harm than good? And my contention is, all speech is good. All speech, no matter how evil it is. Free speech includes everything. There's no such thing as hate speech. What if we told
every person to go and shit in the pool? Do you think that that's a good form of speech? That does more good things than bad things? What if that happened?
That's irrelevant. You should have the right to say shit in the pool.
Hold on. Whether or not you have a right to say something isn't the same as saying it is good or bad. You're saying that all information is good. I'm saying there's probably some information that's bad.
It's irrelevant, but yeah.
Well, it's not irrelevant. It is actually the point of the conversation.
People should not shit in pools, but it's perfectly legitimate to have a podcast called Pool Shit. Hi, welcome back to Pool Shit.
We're not talking about
today. We're talking about what I did was I shat a little nugget in my mesh before I went into the pool. Then I swam to the bottom of the pool and I just sort of dropped it near the filter. No one knew. So if you guys want to shit in pools, make sure it's a solid stool and make sure it's in your undergarments before you dive in. Thanks. This has been a message from Pool Shit. And we'd like to thank our sponsors.
Do you think that would be a good or bad information?
That's bad information.
Okay. So do you think that the listeners of Pool Shitters, do you think that those listeners might start doing things that Pool Shitters says to do? There might be a few dumb kids out there. Okay.
Possibly.
So
but
if it was the case,
in general,
if it was
benefits
the case,
from information.
If it was the case,
the more the merrier.
I was on a debate panel
flowers
with
bloom,
Gavin,
as Mao
and
said.
I asked Gavin, hey, if I were to do a random sampling of Americans, and I look at Americans that don't listen to Pool Shitters and Americans that do listen to Pool Shitters, who do you think is more likely to shit in the pool? You would probably say, well, probably the most ardent listeners of the Pool Shitters podcast.
Dude, you sound like a communist, and I don't mean like someone with communist beliefs. You sound like a genetic.
This is a fucking insane conversation, bro.
Don't you think that's bad information?
You see different people. Yeah. You're like, there's these people. There's
listen to Pool Shitters and people that don't listen to Pool Shitters.
Yeah, you're like, there's these people. They're disgusting. Then there's these people. Then there's these people.
But not you. You just see everybody as a collection of traits and beauty.
They're all changing. We're all
just
cells.
energies.
We're all moving. That's
amazing.
The thing. You want to feed the cells.
Mm-hmm.
You want the cells to have more food, more plankton. We're all growing and changing. You've already classified us as the disgusting idiots.
It's so interesting because Gavin's the kind of person who would who says dumb wrong things constantly and then goes, well, I'm just joking. Like that is the 100% the energy that I'm getting here right now. He's the I was just kidding guy. Like it's fucking insane. In all honesty, it's fucking insane. I don't understand.
To shit in the pool, and the smart people that fucking play
shit in the pool.
call themselves strippers.
Honest to God,
I want everyone to
I think
be
I would have those classifications. I think that if I lived in a society where there was a podcast called Pool Shitters, I think I would actually. I'm going to be honest here, and maybe to the chagrin of my leftist friends, I would say, you know what? I would look down on those people that shit in pools.
Yeah,
I would do that.
You're retarded because they're funny.
I'm sorry. They might be funny.
Podcast Pool Shitters,
you know what? I think I would look down on them.
My birthday
that might be a personal problem with me, but that's why I'm the bad kind of guy. Oh my God! Are you? Excuse me. Did you just laugh in the middle of talking over me while I was trying to?
I was laughing at my own joke. I was laughing at my own joke.
Jesus Christ. Okay. All right.
Great time.
Where are we at, James?
Q&A.
Thank God.
Our guests are
Billy Bragg. I'm the sort of bloke who laughs at his own jokes.
In the description, you can find our guest links. That includes if you're listening to the podcast. This one coming in from Ozian, challenging question you. Destiny says, to argue that Joe Rogan's show could be immoral for presenting misinformation would mean that you're arguing against YouTube, as it also allows flat earthers, etc. This is a tough argument for you to consistently make, they say.
Well, here's the thing that I was going to say is that it doesn't matter if you believe the Earth is flat. So I know it's a hot take, but there's really no, like, other than you just looking dumb, there's really no problem with thinking that the Earth is flat because it quite literally doesn't matter, right? Like, you shouldn't think that thing, but it's okay because it really doesn't matter because it's not killing people. And so I think more than anything else, it's like, you know, there's people that are on the internet that talk about how, like, we should, religion, crystals, anything that is, like, non-provable, passing it around as fact. Well, that's not really dangerous for the most part because it's not bad to believe in something, you know? It's spiritual. That's okay. It's okay that you believe in things. It comes to when it becomes harmful, right? So it's like, it's okay to be religious. You just can't believe that all gay people need to die, right? That's, you know, we've set that standard. So, like, yeah, it doesn't really matter as long as you're not leading to people potentially dying. This is the point.
We didn't even get to the ethics of, is it moral or immoral? We were just saying, is it good or bad to, like, have, or rather even, does it spread misinformation or not? I don't even think we got to that.
No, is it better or worse for society?
Well, with regards to the coronavirus, worse.
This is coming in for you, Gavin. Not particularly on topic, but I have a feeling you might still be happy to answer. They say, Gavin, what are your thoughts on open relationships, specifically letting a wife sleep with other men?
Oh, I'm glad this came up because
thank God.
This is something I genuinely care about.
How can we not have this conversation?
Not so much like the semantics of the vaccines.
What the fuck?
Destiny, I want to take a break from this whole discussion and have a talk with you about your future, about what's going on with your life, and how to make it better. Because I'm scared.
Oh my God.
Here's what's happened with you, right? I think you got addicted to Adderall or some sort of meth, some sort of amphetamine. They're all the same.
Fucking kill me. Because Destiny's in like a fucking open relationship or whatever. And I used to be one too, and I think it's cringe now because I've been much better, more balanced person. Maybe that's just what I needed. I don't know. But it's just kind of funny. It's just like stupid and funny. It's so stupid.
And you did what anyone does. You had fans because you became famous. And you know, men do this. They buy low, sell high. So they buy high, sell low. You saw a pretty girl that was interested in you. She's Swedish. You're obviously into white people. Most people are interested in their own
absolutely.
race.
If you look at my dating history, it's all
so
white
you chose
people,
a hot Swede. Now, Swedes are poison.
Okay.
There's two reasons why they're poison.
Why is
One,
that?
they come from Vikings and they demand this kind of alpha toughness. I'm not saying slap her around, but Swedish women want dominant men to fucking say, we're doing this now. They don't want cucks who let black dudes fuck them in the ass. So you
wait, hold on. When you say fuck them in the ass, do you mean me or my wife?
Neither. They don't want any of those shenanigans. I'm not saying those shenanigans.
I was referring to. That was really important.
You can try the shenanigans like in your college years, whatever you're experimenting, blah, blah, blah.
I can go back to college.
So there's two things with your wife.
Years old.
There's two things. One is they're essentially female Vikings.
Okay.
So they're not like, they don't do well when you're like, honey, I made your breakfast. Like they want you to control the show. or you're
she says
fucking
every
dumped.
morning she's so happy when I make
And
her
you will
breakfast.
get dumped. Like
She
Ari the
gives me
Rugged
a
Man.
smile and everything.
Ari
What
the
do you
Rugged
mean?
Man was twice the man of you, and he
Twice
got dumped by his Swede because he
Jesus.
wasn't man enough. So you got to. But here's the other thing, and this is much bigger than you and me. It's
Is it black
there's-
dick or what's way bigger
there's
than that?
something
Oh my
about
God.
races where they get to a level of, I shouldn't maybe not even say races, cultures, when they get to a level of success, they become lemmings. They become masochistic, ethno-masochistic, they become suicidal. And I believe that Swedes are like, all right, we made it to the top. Fuck me. And they start like playing Russian roulette, and they start like taking in, like the way that she married you is like alien. Like she's like, oh, good, easy prey. And she's eating you right now.
Okay.
The only way you can save this marriage, this
Good
relationship,
chance.
is to
Wait, hold
is
on,
to
James. We're
start
getting to the most important
drawing
part.
a line and saying, no, I'm in control now, bitch.
Okay, can I ask you a serious question? So right now, the rule in our relationship is she's only allowed to fuck, I think it's 4 guys a day.
I don't want to hear that. I don't.
What should I bring that down to?
You're
Gavin, what do I bring that down
ear
to?
holes.
I need you to
I
tell
can't
me,
hear that.
because I don't know how to
that.
run my life. I need you to tell me, okay? What should I bring that number
I
down
want to
to?
focus on the 2 things. One,
2 guys a
that
day? 2 a
Swedes are
day.
suicidal,
2 a
just
day.
like Japanese, just like
Okay.
every successful ethnic group. They start killing themselves.
Okay.
And then 2,
the fuck?
she's a fucking Viking. She needs to be dominated. Don't be
Okay.
nice to her.
Jesus Christ.
Okay.
This one coming
I've seen
in
it with Colombians. Colombians
from
are like that too for some
Sunflower.
reason.
Okay, how
Appreciate it.
long do I have? Wait, hold on. It's James. This is way more important in my life than whatever Q&A.
Yes,
Hold on.
yes.
How long do I have until she kills herself? Should I start shopping around for another
No,
wife
no, no.
now?
She won't kill. It's when I say kill yourself, I meant like
What he's saying is that successful country, like successful groups of people, right, like which tend to be very racist, like Japanese and American and whatnot. After they become successful, they tend to cannibalize themselves by like implementing, I don't know, too much freedom or something. Like they destroy their own society by loosening up, and one of those ways you loosen up is not being like super marriage incorporated, and not being like super aggressive in your ideologies on women, and you start to soften up and let women, you know, make up their own minds and have sex with who they want, etc. And that is how society is destroying itself.
the entire culture is self-stimulating. Is that the word? So she's not going to literally kill herself.
Oh,
But
okay.
Swedes
She's gonna, like, culturally
and
kill herself.
Northern
Let's jump into the
Europeans
next
are both figuratively and literally killing themselves.
This
So
one
your
coming in-
relationship has maybe a year or 2 left.
Okay.
But the culture of Sweden and Scandinavia,
Mhm.
I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years.
Jesus Christ.
they're already-
she doesn't even
they're
speak
already
fucking Sweden around the
glorifying
house.
euthanasia.
I think it's already happening.
This
Like
one
she doesn't
comes-
speak her language anymore. She doesn't
So
have
this is what's
Kika
going to
anymore.
happen.
It's like,
we move on to the
Destiny,
next
this
one.
is what's going to happen. You're going to laugh at this
Yeah.
warning you're
but
getting
in 3
right now.
years, Grandpa
And then you're
Gavin
going to come
is-
back to me in
Uh-huh.
like 5 years.
5
and you're going
years.
to go, you're going to have like a perfect little side part. You'll be all shaved and have a tie. And you'll be like, dude, you were right. And I'm a born again Christian now. I don't do any drugs.
Uh-huh.
Definitely not speed. Not even
Not even
coffee.
We
Adderall?
must go to the next one. This
And
one,
I'm gonna
I
say-
hate to do this.
I'm gonna
Gentlemen, we
say-
have so many questions.
Destiny, you may have overshot the mark a bit here. Jesus Christ. I'm sorry, I blasphemed.
Okay.
Holy cow. But you're going to be happier ultimately, but you have to hit rock bottom before you
Okay.
come back up. Your relationship
Is rock bottom, is that like a
with an
Norwegian chick or
ethnomasochist
is it?
starling.
Okay.
Your wife
gotcha.
is a starling.
This
You know
one-
what that is?
We must move on. I hate to do this,
No,
gentlemen.
No, I got to
Yeah.
say this one last thing, please.
One last thing,
Starlings
James,
were
it's so
imported
important.
in North America. They
Uh-huh.
devoured the continent because they
Okay.
had no natural predators.
Jesus.
Starlings are ruthless monsters
Okay.
that come from the
What is
Siberian
happening?
winters of
All
Europe.
right. James, I think it's time for the next question. What do we got?
Sunflower
I think I'm with him on that only, Gavin. You fucking psychopath.
has a question for you, Stephen. They
I'm
say,
so
is
glad I
there
got that
any data that indicates vaccinations decreased or alternative therapy increased as a result of Rogan's podcast?
Good question.
Actually, I have no idea. I don't know if you'd be able to, how you would be able to study, particularly if one media source influenced somebody to do something or not do something. It's probably pretty
Good
difficult.
response.
But I think that if you holistically look at the media environment you live in, there's probably data out there that shows that people that consume certain types of media are less likely to be vaccinated than other people that consume certain types of media.
No, that's
My guess
chicken or
is
the
Joe
egg. That
Rogan.
doesn't
And
work.
my guess is that Joe Rogan, probably it would be the part of that media sphere that gets people to not take vaccines.
This one coming in from Sky Daddy Mythbuster says, quote,
That applies to country music too, you realize.
I don't think that people that listen to country music, I don't think that country music songs are saying,
Yes,
today we're
but
going to
people
talk
who
about
listen to country music are less likely to be vaccinated.
I'm not talking about a simple correlation between what people like and what people do. I'm saying
Yes,
that
you
Joe
are.
Rogan is a causal factor because he is literally platforming
but
misinformation
you're just saying
regarding
it's a causal
vaccines.
factor, but you're using the evidence as this group likes this group likes that. That's country music.
Yeah, but I have a
You can't
stronger
just say
tie because
causal factor
country
if-
music.
Bro, he's just not getting it. Like, he's just saying that country music people don't make songs about how you shouldn't get vaccinated, even if they are people who don't think you should get vaccinated. Whereas, if you compare that media, like your art, as a country music artist, is country music, versus Joe Rogan's art, for lack of a better term, is his podcast. And on his podcast, he platforms like anti-vax misinformation, but you don't see country music doing that. Maybe I just don't see it. Maybe I just don't see it. I don't know. This is fucking insane.
Country music isn't known for talking about vaccination.
I know. I understand.
Joe Rogan is. So there's probably a higher likelihood that somebody listening to Joe Rogan.
Probably. Welcome to probably.tv.
Welcome to all social
we
sciences.
Also do the shit.
You want me to make a stronger
podcast.
claim about the Starlings that are? Oh, sorry, go ahead. I didn't want to.
The Starling claim is actually pretty much more sound.
Pretty much more sound.
No, it's 100% more sound.
Okay, thank you. Jesus.
Sky Daddy Mythbusters.
It's also 100% true that Joe Rogan listeners will be persuaded into getting the vaccine by Joe Rogan himself. I talked to 3 people. Yes.
This one coming in. I think this one.
All 3 of them were my wife's.
I haven't talked to 3 people. My theory about your wife for the Starling is
this one coming in from
millions.
Sky Daddy Mythbusters. I think this one's for you, Gavin. They say patients coded for COVID to avoid post-mortem lawsuits. Question: we are to believe that the medical staff doesn't know the COVID status of every single patient from time of admission to death.
I don't. That was a lot of question marks. It sounded like. If there were cases where hospitals were falsely marking COVID-19 deaths, those stories would be plastered.
No one's saying
everybody is saying that. That's exactly what's being said. Gavin, you need to talk to more people. Okay.
Okay.
Stop
when I say no, I'm talking about this debate.
Okay.
In this debate, I'm not saying that. I am saying
the debate wasn't
a very
Gavin
wide
and
net,
Steven
and including
by
their
Joe
COVID
Rogan.
diagnosis in their cancer and their diabetes and everything. I resent the size of that
question. The person asked me a question about Joe Rogan.
I'm sorry, I didn't know that was for you. I apologize.
Oh, okay, Jesus. Yeah, the answer was yes, James.
This one coming in from Ozzy and Talk says 2019 to 2020 saw 500,000 more deaths in the U.S. Only 350,000 were reported as COVID-19 by the CDC. 2.85 million in 2019 and 3.3 million in 2020.
Okay.
Thank you for that factoid. That was amazing. Do you have another one of those?
Next person who works on the show somehow.
This one coming in from River.
Was that a donation by Jamie? Is that guy? Sorry, go ahead.
River and Fernandez T both say thanks for having Gavin on. And reminder, our guests, both Gavin and Destiny, are linked in the description. Bezos' anti-bullying agency says argument doesn't matter. Gavin wins by default, virtue of the fact. Okay, let's see. Hey, thank you very much, ML.
Wait,
not reading the rest of that one.
Oh,
ML
the open relationship question was okay, but that one was over the line. Now I'm even more interested in
ML
what that
says. Let's see.
Yeah, good point, Destiny.
Jesus.
Every time I say your name, I picture a hot black chick with blonde hair.
Well, thankfully, you're not looking at me on the monitor right now, so it's 2022. I could be a hot chick with blonde hair. Surgery's come a long way.
Too much video games and fucking Adderall. That is the bane of your generation's existence.
This one.
I am
get away from the video
games and Adderall.
Stop taking Adderall
at this point.
It's a drug. It's speed.
Aren't you? You're
We
drinking
used to
drug right
call
now,
you guys
aren't
tweakers in the 80s.
This one coming in from Canadian Catholic says, how much criticism of lockdowns should be allowed, Destiny?
Are we talking like chastity belt lockdowns, or what kind of lockdowns are?
This one
Now he's the sarcasm king.
I'm not even being sarcastic. I want you to clarify. Because
you want
we just had a
chastity
20-minute
That's
conversation
sarcastic
about my wife committing ethnic suicide or whatever. I don't know what the fuck the topic even is anymore. Is this about the are we talking about chastity belts
You're
for the
so
Iowa
mad that I
truck
predicted
drivers?
the next 5 years of your life.
You are literally Larry the Tomato Red right now on my screen, okay? There's no way that I'm the mad one here, all right?
This
Slow
one,
down.
Mr.
James,
Monster
can
Well,
you
that's
repeat?
called being white. You clearly went to Sweden for a
Monster
wife
says,
because you love white
let's move to the
people.
next one.
This is what we look like,
But
and we're
we have so
mad.
many questions. We have to just. Mr. Monster says, do you think that it would be more helpful to society if Joe Rogan actually supported vaccines?
Just like saying you support something, that's not what I care about. I just wish that when he brought on people to give like an alternative tale on things, he was as critical of them as he is of people that present the mainstream opinion, rather than just like filleting every person that comes on and gives like some anti-mainstream take and being wholly uncritical of everything they're saying.
I'm glad Destiny brought that up. Can I interrupt and be serious for a second?
Oh my God.
I totally get that point. That's totally valid. But we are living in a society where all of the mainstream media is one narrative. So Joe Rogan represents, I don't know, 1% of the media that is daring to say, wait a minute, how wonderful are these vaccines? So yes, I would agree.
It's so interesting because by what Destiny just said, that's not even his issue. He's literally just saying that Joe Rogan is very critical of mainstream media, but he's not very critical of the guests he has on that push alternative media that could or do have very harmful perspectives on the coronavirus. That's literally all he's saying. And and like, I'm just assuming Gavin just doesn't understand words. That's the only assumption I could really truly have. That's it.
Agree that he does ass lick these people more than say someone on another media source. But it's because we are being bombarded with this one narrative. So when someone dares to go against it, may they please kiss the person's ass. And you've seen, by the way, what happens with him. He's fucked now. He's ruined. I'd be surprised if his daughter can get a job because he dared go against the narrative. So yeah, when it's David and Goliath, David is allowed to put a string against a rock and whip it up and throw it up into an eye. That's dirty pool to hit someone in the eye, but it's not equal standing.
Wait a minute.
David is allowed to go. He's ruined. I'd be surprised if his daughter can get a job because he dared go against the narrative. So yeah, when it's David and Goliath, David is allowed to put a string against a rock and whip it up and throw it up into an eye. That's dirty pool to hit someone in the eye, but it's not equal standing.
It's just funny that he said that because that logically justifies like any argument for systemic racism. Like he's just acknowledging systemic racism. Like, hey, or the reaction to it of people that are being systemically oppressed having a negative reaction towards, I don't know, like white people in this instance. It's just funny. Like you're allowed to not play by the rules and be a ruder if you're the underdog kind of a thing. It was just an interesting observation.
This one coming in from, do appreciate your question as well. Bezos, anti-bullying agency, says, question for Destiny, does the concept of quote-unquote misinformation undermine democracy? Basically, quote, you can all vote how you want, but you can't think or talk about what you want, unquote. Thus, it undermines democracy.
You can think or talk however you want. Me being opposed or me saying that the Bullshitters podcast is maybe putting out bad information, I don't think that undermines democracy. I think me giving my opinion on it all.
That exemplifies democracy. Like, hey, I'm allowed to have a perspective on something. Not once did he talk about how Joe Rogan should be censored. He's just like, yeah, we should be able to talk about it because he's doing a wrong thing. That's what freedom of speech is supposed to be about. Different perspectives and opinions clashing. What the fuck?
It's all part of the democratic process. We're all here to scream at each other and shout at each other over what we think is right, over what we think is misinformation, and that's what we do. That's part of the democratic process.
What did Joe Rogan say that was bullshit?
I think that the way that he brought on Robert Malone and let that guy ramble a whole bunch of bullshit studies, a whole bunch of bullshit drugs, and the fact that he was wholly uncritical of almost every single thing he said, I think that was the harm for that podcast.
So what did Joe Rogan say that was bullshit?
It's not about like one line or thing that he said. It's about the whole of the episode. People don't just watch like 10 seconds of it. It's like, what, like a 3-hour show?
What if you have a flat earther on your on your show? Is that wrong?
I think that if you had a flat earther on your show and they were like, did you know that the earth is flat? And it's a big theory that all of NASA and all the world is trying to fuck us. And Joe was like, damn, that's some serious shit. Yeah. You know, maybe. Yeah. And then you started to get other people in society believing it. Yeah. I would say that's bad too. There was a time where we had fucking NBA players.
That would be fucking
We had
funny.
NBA players that were saying shit like the earth was fucking flat. So at that point in time, I would say, yeah, that would be pretty bad.
This one coming in from, do appreciate your
question.
question.
No one thought the earth was flat ever, by the way.
You don't think so? Ever? Not ever?
Mark Santola said,
it was a few radical cave people, like even 500 years ago. It was never a thing. In fact, it's more popular now than it ever was before.
This one from Mark Santola. For you, Stephen, regarding Dr. Malone, they said, Dr. Malone is a co-inventor of the mRNA vaccines, is pro-vax, and has been published over 100 times. Destiny, have you really listened to the full episode?
Malone is not the co-inventor of the mRNA vaccine, and his only contribution to mRNA research was a paper that he did as like a grad student. He owns a few patents.
No, that's false.
That is absolutely
He was one
true.
of the many contributors to the mRNA vaccine.
No,
he did not write one fucking paper.
He had
By the way,
zero
how many
input
papers have you written?
whatsoever.
Why are we constantly dealing with these people who have never contributed anything outside of playing some fucking video games?
Okay.
A guy plays video games on
you're out of line.
Twitch,
You're
and
way
he's
out of
talking
line.
to a
You're way out of line.
doctor
You're way
about
out of
all the
line.
amazing things
Gavin.
He's contributed. Do something. Trivialize our accomplishments.
All right,
Is Gavin being serious? This is embarrassing for him. He's a fucking loser. What the fuck? What the fuck is this? What is this interaction? This is such a childish interaction to have right here. What the fuck? Very bizarre.
Less to accomplish.
Sigma male mode. Engage, baby.
You trivialize other people's accomplishments.
Hold on.
Do something. You're literally on your ass
Stephen
for a living. Get up.
We do have to. Go ahead, Stephen.
Fuck. Are you in sweatpants right now?
Absolutely not, sir.
This one coming in from not a
I didn't even get the finish.
Wait, you didn't get to answer that question. I want to see what he has to say. Because he keeps talking about how he's like the fucking greatest contributor of the mRNA vaccine. I want to hear what Destiny has to say.
Answering, okay? I wrote a lot of papers. When I was in high school for English class, I wrote so many papers, okay? So the fact that I haven't done anything, I resent that comment, okay? I was in a lot of AP classes.
You got a C for cuck.
I did not get a C for cuck, okay? I got a B for bitchin', all right? So
this one.
I do not think that, hold on. Robert Malone is not the co-inventor of any of the fucking vaccines. That's just not true. That's bullshit. Okay. It's
not. He's an inventor. You contribute to the culture.
I don't know. Maybe somebody that worked on one of the companies that created the vaccine. Maybe somebody that worked in the public sector that contributed a significant amount of research towards mRNA vaccines. Not a guy that wrote one paper one time on a process for creating mRNA vaccines that ended up not even working out. None of the research they ended up panning out as being a mRNA vaccines that ended up not even working out. None of the research that he initially did ended up panning out as being a proper way to even build an mRNA vaccine. The fact that this guy,
bullshit. That's
Gavin, when did he work on mRNA vaccines?
About 15 years before this vaccine today.
It was no. It was in the fucking, I think his paper was in 1991 or something. It was like 30 fucking years ago that this guy was writing anything about this. He's not even considered the main contributor to mRNA vaccine research. You go and Google that if you want names.
What
for
is
it, okay?
mRNA, Destiny?
What do you mean? Do you want the abbreviation? Messenger ribonucleic acid?
No.
Do you want the
What is it,
function
though?
that it goes through ribosomes in
What's
your
the
body and it's used to
concept?
create
What's the
protein?
concept? What does it do? Like,
What is
what is the technology? What cars are mobilized vehicles that are
Sure.
powered by
The
gas?
The technology is you have a bunch of nanolipid particles, NLPs, that encompass a single strand of mRNA that goes into your cell, enters your ribosome, and then proteins are printed out that emulate the protein signature of the virus SARS-CoV-2. That's the function of the mRNA vaccine.
Correct. Now, to talk about the inventor of that is to talk about the inventor of punk or the inventor of hardcore or the inventor of rock. You obviously have hundreds of people who are contributing to that technology. It's not the invention of the fucking light bulb or the mousetrap. Actually, the invention of the light bulb also has almost infinite people contributing. So yes, he was a major contributor. He was not a lunatic off the street is the big picture here. He was someone who was involved in the culture of mRNA, and Joe dared speak to him. God forbid you should speak to people who are involved in the largest pandemic in history. God forbid.
Malone, if you want to say Malone, with a series of hundreds of other scientists, wrote papers all along the past 3 decades talking about mRNA research, I would have no problem with that. That's not what he sells himself as. He says he is the inventor or co-inventor of mRNA technology. That's not true. In 1987, he performed an experiment with like mRNA strands and like frogs or something, and he published a paper as a grad student. That was his contribution.
No, that's not his only contribution. He has had what 8 patents involved in
technology. And where are his drugs?
Been
Where are his
involved
drugs?
in the
whoa.
culture.
Where? Okay, cool that you have patents. Where are your drugs? I don't give a fuck. You can patent any chemical that you want. You go into any lab and synthesize any chemical and patent it.
So your patents don't matter unless you have drugs for it. That's absolute horseshit.
In the medical world, you can patent all sorts of RC research chemicals. You can patent all sorts of yeah. That's what a patent is. Yeah,
are a whole economy in and of themselves that exist below the pharmaceutical industry. You have patents. You sell patents to other companies. They then make pharmaceuticals from your patent.
Okay, what
Patents
pharmaceuticals have been made?
World.
What pharmaceuticals have been made off of
song samples here?
What
You're talking about
pharmaceuticals?
samples to
What
music
pharmaceuticals
that got made into other music.
Okay, where was Dr. Robert Malone's music sampled? What album is he featured on? Is he featured on the Moderna album? Is he featured on the double-sided
on the
Pfizer
Moderna album?
No,
and he is featured on the Pfizer album. He's featured in all these albums.
No, he's absolutely not.
Listen
None of those
to
patents
you.
are relevant. None of those
listen
patents.
to you.
None
Sit
of
on your
listen
ass
to you. Are
and
you
talk
serious?
about scientists who have not achieved enough.
It's not about him having achieved enough.
The more they trivialize others' accomplishments. We sound like 2 sports guys talking about Noah Syndergaard's pitch and how it's fallen below 100 miles an hour way too many times.
So he's not the co-creator.
He's not the
co-creator. He's
make
not
a baby.
He's not
dominate
the
your Viking wife.
How many children do you have?
Make a baby.
How many children do you have?
3.
Oh, well, congratulations.
Next one. Not a Trump. Thanks for your questions. Is Destiny.
How many years have you been married?
Well, I met my wife in 2021, but we've only been married for a mere 17 years.
Okay.
This
17 years.
Yeah, a totally monogamous relationship involving 0 threesomes. Though in my heyday, I did.
I mean, listen, bro. There's a difference between being in an open relationship versus threesomes. Okay, we all know this. Okay, we all know this. And who the fuck? What guy wouldn't be like, "Hey, wife, that'd be pretty poggers." I'm just saying. Come on. You get what I'm saying. You guys get it. You guys are my homies. You understand everything. You guys are just smart guys. That's what it is.
Not a Trump says possible that there are sketchy things going on around the COVID vaccine. Is there no corruption in government or prescription drug companies?
That's an annoying question.
If there was, man, it sure would be great to see some, rather than Robert Malone going on to some podcast and spewing a whole bunch of bullshit that is meaningless and not substantiated anywhere in the literature. But
This one coming in from Blake says Destiny.
That one really pissed him off. Sorry, go ahead.
No
Just this idea of like siding with the government over a controversial
It's not siding with the
guest.
government. It's all the researchers that are working on this. It's not just the government. Don't be such a
Don't
baby
talk
about
to
it.
that person.
Don't be such
Don't
a
talk
baby.
to that person.
Biden said it, so I don't agree.
We're in
with
this
it.
culture of like these tattletale journalists that are like,
We're not
that
talking
guy
about
was over
journalists.
there.
We're talking about
that guy didn't get a permit.
research
You
institutions.
didn't get a permit.
This is part of being an adult, Gavin. Okay, it's figuring out who you
it's
trust
not.
and who you
That's
can't
part
trust.
of being a
okay,
tattletale.
when you're 4
You're
years
a
old and your
tattletale.
mom and dad have a conversation about don't accept candy from the guy in the van, right? We learn this at a very young age. There are people that you can trust, people you can't trust. Okay, you can figure this out. I believe.
Yeah, and I'm adult enough to figure it out. Are you a child? Are you the kind of person that gets into a van because there's candy? Because you're getting in a van right now, and the candy is the tyrannical narrative of COVID in 2022.
It's like the teenager that does the exact opposite of what his parent tells him to do because he wants to be rebellious without thinking
Dude,
through
that's
any
you.
of his
You're
fucking following.
You are in a
This one
fucking
must
outside the
forward.
box universe where nothing's real, man. You sound like fucking David Crosby on acid in 1971.
How
Grow up.
similar does David Crosby on acid sound to Ben Shapiro and Adderall? Is there a huge overlap here in terms
Well,
of?
phonetically, you're Ben Shapiro on Adderall,
Okay,
but
yeah.
culturally, you're a stupid hippie fucking up your own life.
Gotcha. Okay.
This one coming in from Eschaton says, Vax doesn't stop the virus from spreading and doesn't prevent infection. No one knows the long-term side effects. The Vax industry is
shit.
immune from civil liability, Stephen.
That's fascinating. I thought the vaccine was 100% effective, like every safety measure we take in society. Now that I found out that it's not, I'm not sure if I'll support the vaccine anymore. I don't believe in taking protective steps for anything unless it's 100%. I don't even wear my seatbelt because I don't want to get stuck in my car and die in a fire. So
This one from Red-Blooded Republican.
He's right. That's a
ex-Trump-
retarded question.
I'm looking for questions.
What the fuck? I'm sorry, it just kind of threw me off. He's just the only thing he had to say was like, "Yeah, that was a dumb question." Well, you know what he really said.
Too for I'm surprised there aren't any questions for Gavin. I don't.
Somebody paid like $10 to say that to Destiny, and then to be on Gavin's side, and Gavin's like, "No, you're just dumb." What a world we live in.
I'm sorry. I'm looking for
what
him.
the fuck?
I am 51 years old. It's possible that people who watch these things aren't interested in a geriatric's opinion.
This one coming in from Red-Blooded Republican ex-Trump supporter says, question for Destiny. I've heard you say you want Brandon to have stricter jab mandates. Can you say the contents of what is in the jab?
Like, do you want like the whole fucking chemical formula of what's in a vaccine? I can't tell you what's in the chemical formula of my fucking Coke. I'm not gonna be able to tell you that.
This is falling apart at the seams.
With that,
Just now it is. It was going great up until that question, though. Go
I want to
ahead.
remind you our guests are linked in the
I
description.
want that person with the question to know that they wrecked this whole debate.
More than Ryan did with the fucking
Person,
soundboard.
wait a minute. The person who said, "Hey, Destiny, do you think that the vaccine cures everyone perfectly and they're never going to have any kind of COVID?" You, sir, look at yourself in the mirror. You ruined this entire night.
You know what? I bet that guy, I bet he was a
Entire debate.
big Joe Rogan fan. I bet he got that talking point right from
Dude,
fucking
I
Joe
don't
Rogan.
care if he's me. He ruined the fucking debate. Hey, Dad, if you're watching this and that was you, fuck you. You're dead to me.
This one coming
I'm
in
out of
from
here. Bye.
Mr. Monster says, what right does Gavin have to say what Destiny does in his life and assume what he does with his wife? Oh, no, let's not go there after all. Let's wrap up. We want to say thank you very much.
Okay, hold on. I gotta ask, what did you not read earlier that you're reading all of these? I have to know. I have to know.
Can I just throw out my motive? My motive is Destiny's happiness. My motive is everyone's happiness.
Hey, thank you very much, folks, for all of your questions. Thank you for Stephen and Gavin for being
How is there still like another fucking 20 minutes on this?
with us tonight. And with that, we hope to see you in future debates. Have a good night, everybody.
That's it?
Unless
Okay.
there are any topics you hadn't. Well, we do have one. This is one for Gavin. John Smont says, Gavin, can you say?
Wait, hold on. I got an important
Bizarre
question.
ending.
Hold on, Gavin, because Gavin is talking about being concerned for everybody's happiness.
Yes.
If I'm letting 4 or 5 guys fuck my wife, aren't we technically making more men happy? If I'm miserable and those other 4 or 5 guys are happy, aren't I actually contributing more to the world?
When you shit your pants, it feels good. Isn't that better for the world? You're shitting your pants.
Well, no, but this is more like I'm letting 5 other guys shit in my pants, so they get the good feeling. I just have
that
to carry
does
around.
feel
Yeah.
better.
So do you think that is it worth it for all of their
Doesn't it
happiness? to
feel
increase?
good when you have to go pee really bad and you stop running towards the bathroom and you just piss your pants? So the fact that it feels good temporarily is not good in the long
But
term.
overall, it's going to fuck everybody up.
The only thing that's going to work for you, and I'm the least traditional guy in the world. Dude, I have a back tattoo of Chiang Kai-shek and Fidel Castro being eaten by an octopus with a skull face.
Jesus.
So I invented outside the box, okay?
Okay.
The idea of we don't need marriage, blah, 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 it's a super fun thing in your early 20s. But you went and got a starling from Europe, and she's going to devour you and everyone around you unless you can keep that cute little starling in control, because it is a fucking phoenix on fire. That thing is a it's a fucking flailing fiery bird that has a wingspan as big as a city block.
You know, me personally, I don't think anybody needs to get married, but I think that there's a really big positive to getting married. I mean, if you look at any relationship, kids tend to be more successful when their parents are married. Me personally, I think that like being in a monogamous relationship was probably the best thing that ever happened in my life. Like, it's much more aligning, like positively aligning. I think that there was a point where I was like fucking around a lot, and that made me lose sight of priorities. Like, I was just like so sexually focused, and it was such a bizarre stressor in life that I was like, ew. But my life's been profoundly better since I've closed shit off. I'm just saying, dude, I don't think everybody should have to get married, but I think it's a good idea. I think it's a good idea to make that a general goal, is to find a person, one person to be with. the rest of your line.
Need to control her or you're all going to die.
Look at that beautiful, beautiful bird.
Ask Ari the Rugged Man. He was
who's
consumed by
doing
a
this?
phoenix, just like you.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm so sorry, James, for cutting off. What was your final question you had there?
No
There's one for
problem. There
Gavin.
was one from Marty, in particular. Marty Mad Scientist said, Gavin, the legal procedure for coding death regarding COVID or not is well documented, and said, why are you misrepresenting it? So they're accusing you of misrepresenting it.
Oh, huge
I'm not
call out there,
misrepresenting
Gavin.
it.
Good luck.
So the death certificate will say stage 4 cancer. On the same certificate, it is COVID is included.
That's not even a death certificate. I just saw it. You're lying. You're misrepresenting the facts. What you
No,
just held
I'm
up
not
there?
misrepresenting.
I'm looking it up. That's not a death. Show the camera. Is that a death certificate? Because you held it up like one.
This is all a list of all the girls I fucked in high
That's
school.
right. Okay. Oh, one at a
I don't
time,
know why
right?
that's here.
Oh, you did threesomes.
No,
Only
yes,
week
there
before you were
is
married.
the
My bad.
main
Okay.
source. They say that they died. But on that form, please believe me, it's a fact that COVID is included. You know this. Look it up. Motorcycle accident, dies. COVID is included. It's always included in these forms. And the big thing I was trying to say earlier is it's not malicious. It's
Okay,
not like
wait.
they're
What
looking
if
for
the
a
guy?
payout.
What if the guy was driving his bike and he had a bad cough and that made him lose control and he died? Isn't that a COVID death? Don't you think that's legitimate?
That's why they include it, because they don't want to get sued in case he coughed and fell.
Because Harley
But my
Davidson would
point
be
is,
like, yeah, you're fucking
But that
up.
fucks with the statistics.
True. Okay.
Thank you, by the way, for
But if
supporting
he
my
didn't
point.
have COVID-19 and he didn't cough, he would still be alive, right?
Can we
isn't
end
that
it
fair to
right
call
when
it?
Destiny supported my point, please? Let's pretend there's some sort of feedback. We can't. Hello?
James.
I can't.
Coming
What's
in from, do appreciate
James? There's
your
feedback.
question. Ryan
Just
Rockwell.
all I see is
Ryan
snow.
Rockwell said, for Gavin, they said, could it be that the quote-unquote mainstream narrative is so quote-unquote one-sided because people are independently converging on the objectively true, stance?
Ooh.
Yeah, that's happened. That happened with Obama's election. That happened with Russiagate. That happened with Trump. That happened with so many fucking lies. Go back to Obama with Fast and Furious. Why do you think 64% of Americans have zero trust in media? Because we've been getting lied to persistently and increasingly since 2008. So now it's at a level of absolute hyperbole. Like, people watch the news to laugh at this point, not because it's true, you fucking pussy. Oh my God. Imagine watching the news today and going, holy shit, that's intense. I did not know that. It's all fucking lies. And I would argue that more than Joe
I mean,
Rogan,
at the end of the day, Gavin Mcinnes is a symptom of the greater problem of media lies, to a point where people mistrust media so much that this is what happens to them. They get so skeptical about everything because the fucking media has lied to us a lot, It's kind of the truth, man. Kind of fucking the truth, brothers.
this bullshit media constantly fucking up, tripping over themselves with lie after lie after lie, from Russiagate, from everything Project Veritas exposes, constant lying, constant, what do they call them? Nothing burgers, again and again and again. That may have killed more Americans than anything else, because they go, well, that's not true. And you told me to get the vaccine, so I'm not going to get it. Maybe we have a bunch of old and fat people who should have had the vaccine, who didn't get the vaccine because they don't trust the media, because fat asses like that turgid tattletale, Brian Stetler and Don Lemon and Chris weight-pumping Cuomo lied so often and so persistently that the boy cried wolf. And they didn't trust the media anymore.
Thank you very much.
I'll tell you
Copenator.
what, I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore.
Copenator says, Destiny, if Joe Rogan's misinformation shouldn't be aired, how should we handle CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News? Everyone has
Fucking
confirmation
insane,
bias.
bro.
If people lie about shit or they misrepresent shit, people should call them out on it. Bully for it.
There you go.
I'm not here saying. I'm
We should
never
have
been
a
like. I
debate
don't think Joe Rogan. Yes, a debate. Thank God, because what we're doing here on this show is unique. Okay, people don't have good conversations like this anymore. All right, they're just busy doing dumb shit.
I
on their podcasts,
I literally
right?
can't tell if you're being sarcastic, but that's true.
Exactly. So
I don't know if that's
I'm not
sarcastic.
trying to. I'm not being sarcastic. Okay? I don't think
You
that.
shouldn't have brought up that you can't be sarcastic, because now I'm filtering everything through that quote.
I'm not saying that Joe Rogan should be deplatformed. That's not what I don't give a fuck about shit like that. I just wish that he would be more critical of some of the people that he brings on, and just spread that around a little bit. Spread the critical thinking.
Why don't you shave your beard, put on a suit, and take your wife on a date?
Hold on. You said
I can't
that you couldn't
fucking
see me.
deal with this
Why do you think
shit.
I have a beard?
I've researched you painstakingly for 58 hours. I've stayed up on crack and meth, researching this because I was so petrified you'd humiliate me.
Jesus
And I can't believe that you were such easy prey after all of this preparation.
This is fucking
I haven't brought up
insane.
butt plugs or urine a single time, but you seem to be going real deep into
I
my life.
honestly, bro, this has been probably the most entertaining debate I've watched in a long time. And I think Gavin Mcinnes is just a complete fucking psychopath, racist piece of shit. But I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm fucking laughing, brother. He is funny, and I think it's an unironic funny. I think that he's just so fucking insane. You know, he doesn't know where. I don't think he knows where his humor starts and ends. I think that he's just insane. And I think part of it's theatrics, but part of it's like he feels comfortable being who he is because people interpret it as theatrics. Does that make sense? You know, it's just fucking bananas.
It's the butt plugs. Is that your smoking gun?
No, not at all. James, what's the next question?
I think that's all we
Well, I guess
have.
it could smoke depending on how fast you did it. What would you say, James?
All we have for tonight for our questions.
Wait, a
that
butt
we
plug
can
up an
use.
ass smoking would be maybe 8 million miles an hour. It's
Have you done the
obviously-
math on that? Is that something that you,
moist
did you Google
surface.
that, or is that another bar stat that you just happen to know?
I'm guessing. I'm guessing.
Educated guess. I actually looked it up, and it's actually only 3 million miles per hour. So you were off by like 50%.
I'm still pretty happy with 8 million. 3 million, 8 million as far as butt plug speed.
Mhm.
Okay. To dry out the anal lips.
We
Gotcha.
will close with that. Want to say, folks, thank you
Yours
so
are
much
probably not dried up
for
at all
tuning in
because you were
tonight.
just treated to a giant black man's cock.
We will go
You
into the
moisten them up with some-
What the fuck?
KY.
So I want to say thanks everybody for hanging out with us tonight. Description box has our guest links. Want to say thanks so much to our guests. It's been a true pleasure to have you.
I was there.
Wait, who's the guest? Me or did you say guests? Both of us.
Yes, both of you.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad to have been here. This was good.
Fuck you all. I hope you die.
Why are you drinking
Great, we'll be
Budweiser?
back
Oh
in
my
just
god,
a
dude.
moment, folks, with a post-credit scene.
Jesus.
What a cock drink. Fuck.
Wow, that was a video. That certainly was a video. Listen, I'm just gonna be fucking honest with you. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to think. That was psychotic. That was insane. And I feel like I'm a much better person after listening to that fucking hysteria.